All right. Thank you for hanging in there with us, folks. Okay, welcome to our November meeting of the Oak Park Public Library Board of Trustees. Secretary, will you please take the roll?
Yes, I forgot about that. I forgot that's my name. Trustee Berg Martinez.
Here.
Trustee Button.
Here.
Trustee Fairfax.
Here.
Trustee Rogers.
Here.
Trustee Wilkinson. Here. Trustee Yamamoto, I am here, and President Bloom.
Here.
Sorry,
Right.
I was like spaced out.
We will move on to approval of the minutes. We have 3 separate meeting minutes that we need to approve. Finance committee meeting from October 20th, regular board meeting from October 28th, and the governance committee from November 3rd. I will entertain motions to approve the finance committee meeting minutes.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right,
Question about approving committee minutes. It
yes.
seems like if we weren't there, should we abstain?
Not necessarily. If you've looked through the minutes and you don't have any objections to them or don't feel like anything's missing, you can vote on it.
How would people know if things are missing if they're not?
But we're not gonna have quorum for most of those because most of the committees are only gonna have 2, maybe 3 trustees in them.
That's customary on other boards,
Gotcha.
approval. Yeah.
I think,
We're committees are in here, so I'm just checking.
I think with the regular board meeting minutes, traditionally we've abstained if we weren't in the meeting. But I think for committees, as long as you've looked through everything, we're okay.
Got it. Thank you.
I will entertain a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from October the 28th, if there is no discussion. I hear moved by Suzanne,
Second.
second by Colin. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? All right, and I will, if there's no discussion, I will entertain a motion for approving the minutes for the governance committee meeting from November the 3rd.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Fantastic. I do not see anyone here for public comment. Ellsworth, did we get any public comment? No. All right. Then we will move on to new business, the 2024 financial audit presentation. And we have Tom from Sicklich here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tom Sawicki. I'm a director with Sickich, one of the auditors for the fiscal 2024 year end. Thanks for giving me a couple minutes tonight to go through the audit. I also want to start by thanking Billy and Linda and the entire finance team for all of their help this year. We can tend to ask for a lot of information, so I always appreciate all the assistance. Really smooth process. Everything was in really good shape and we got it from them. So again, really appreciate all the help to get through the audit. Tonight I'll be going through the audit report that we will be issuing. And we'll note it is in draft form right now. It has not been officially finalized. The library and the village are on the same IMRF plan. It's called a cost sharing plan. And so the library actually can't finalize until the village audit is finalized as well. So that's the only holdup right now on actually finalizing the reports. No changes to these numbers or anything in the documents here. Just need to take the draft stamp off essentially. So if you'd like to follow along, I'll be indicating what page number I'll be going through in the audit report here. So if you start on page 15 of the agenda packet, it's page 1 of the audit report. It's the independent auditor's report section here. So we follow a couple sets of standards for our audit, generally accepted auditing standards and then governmental reporting requirements. In accordance with those 2 standards, we've issued what we call an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. It's also known as a clean audit opinion. It's the highest level of assurance we can provide that financial statements are free from material misstatements, so in other words, like they're clean financial statements as presented. So the rest of the independent auditor's report just goes through a couple of other matters, like what our responsibilities are as auditors, and then what management's responsibilities are for financials. If you flip that a couple more pages to the next section on page 19 of the packet, page MD&A 1 at the bottom, this is the management's discussion and analysis section of the report. So just as the name describes, management discusses and analyzes the financial information in the audit report. So Linda put this together, did a really nice job taking the current year information, compares to the prior year, and then adds explanations for why some of the balances may have changed from the prior year. So good context to the numbers, and I would highly encourage the boards I present to, if you don't read anything else in detail in the audit report, I would at least encourage you to read through this MD&A section to get some additional information there. So I'm going to leave that for you all and skip past that and go to the basic financial statements starting on page 26 of the packet, or page 4 of the report. This is the statement of net position. Essentially, it's like the balance sheet and what we call the entity-wide schedule. So it includes the regular fund financial information you're used to seeing, but also includes some long-term items like capital assets and your long-term liabilities there. Pointing down to the section at the bottom called net position. There's 3 components to that. Your net investment in capital assets, which is basically just your capital assets less any debt used to acquire those. There's a restricted net position. Those are obviously restricted for a specific purpose. And then unrestricted is the residual amount that can be spent for anything the library chooses there. So about $9 million in unrestricted net position. Next page, statement of activities. This is essentially the income statement at the entity-wide level. It shows how the net position changed from the prior year. So on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the change in net position. There was an increase to your net position of about $841,000 from operations during the fiscal year. The line a couple below there, change in accounting principle, a new standard we have to implement, which reduced net position during the fiscal year related to compensated absences that had to be accrued for. Flip one more page then, page 28. This is your balance sheet at the governmental fund level. So the first column there is your general fund, your main operating fund. The key numbers on here I like to look at is down at the bottom in the fund balance section. So you see the $6.4 million in unassigned fund balance. I would like to compare that to your fund balance policy. So the library's fund balance policy is that that number should represent between 40 to 48% of your expenditures. The 6.4 million represents about 55%, so a little bit above that target range there. The key with that is that that's not necessarily an issue, it's just something you want to monitor on a go-forward basis to make sure it's kind of at the level you want it to be at. So if it's above that target threshold, determining if you need to spend that down on capital projects or what have you. If it's below, finding a way to build it back up. So again, no issue there, just want to monitor that going forward. Flipping one more page then, to page 30. This is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. Again, looking at general fund here. Just looking down at the bottom at the change in fund balance, you can see it increased its fund balance by about $279,000 for the fiscal year. At the end of the year, it had about $7.2 million in total. Those are your basic financial statements. Page 32 starts your notes, just adds additional details, context behind the numbers for some of the key areas like your cash and investments, capital assets, debt, and your pension and OPEB plans there. So I'm going to skip over that, just point out a couple of additional schedules. Go right past the notes, the first schedule there on page 52, which is 29 of the audit report. You can see on the right-hand column, this is your budget versus actual schedule for your general fund. So that actual column on the right-hand side. At the bottom, you can see the increase in fund balance of $279,000, as we noted a couple pages ago. Look at the column on the left of it. We actually budgeted for the general fund to decrease its fund balance by about $1.1 million. So ultimately, the fund actually outperformed how you budgeted for it by about $1.4 million during the fiscal year. Last schedule I'm going to quickly point out in the audit report is on page 54 or page 31 of the audit report. This is your schedule of your net pension liability for the IMRF plan. So if you look at the right-hand column, 2023, that's the most recent information available for this plan. Again, this is that cost-sharing plan with the village, so that top percentage up there, 30.84, is the library's proportion of the plan itself. Number below that is your net pension liability associated with the plan. Actually, it was a $1.3 million liability last year. It's a $725,000 asset at the end of 2023. So good returns there on the actuary evaluation here. The key number on this schedule actually is at the very bottom, the 101%. That's actually the funded status of the plan. So the plan is over 100% funded for the library. So in a really good position, obviously. IRF is one of the best funded plans in the state, so no concerns there at all from a funding perspective. Those are the high-level items I wanted to run through on the audit report. I did want to mention we have a second report. I don't think it was included in the packet. It's an auditor's communication report. So it includes just a couple of pieces of information. You have all hard copies of those? Okay, perfect. So I want to quickly just point out what's included in the second report here. There's a few pieces of information in here. The first is a required communication from us as auditors, just kind of standard language we have to communicate to the board under our auditing standards. There's a listing of any adjusting journal entries we identified during the audit process. We only had 5 entries this year, and of those entries, those are pretty much all ones we do assist most of our clients with. Again, the trial balances were in a really great spot when we got them initially, and knowing we were going to have to post those kinds of entries for the library during the audit process. The last piece of information in that report is the management letter. So that document would be any deficiencies you identify in your controls or other recommendations for improvement. We actually had no new comments to report this year. We had one residual one from last year related to like segregation of duties. And actually that's been partially implemented during 24 and anticipated to be fully implemented in 2025 with the changes that the finance team has made on there. So again, really great spot that the library's in, both financially speaking, the information they provide to us, and from a recommendation standpoint. So with that though, that's kind of all the high level information I wanted to present this evening, but I'd be happy to address any questions you all may have.
Can you talk a little bit more about the one discrepancy that you did find? I know you said that that was partially resolved in 2024. Looks like it will be completely resolved in 25-26. But can you just explain that a little bit more for us?
Yeah, so it's related to segregation of duties, which is obviously just trying to make sure there's not one person doing everything in a process, right? You have other people looking at it, reviewing it. For example, if you have looking at cash receipts, right? Cash comes in. You don't want one person taking the money in, depositing it to the bank, doing every step in the process where there's no controls in there with somebody else looking at it. With a smaller entity, a smaller finance department, it's kind of hard to avoid that kind of comment with the number of staff you have in the finance department. So that comment has been there for a number of years, but I know that Billy and Linda have been working on trying to address that over the past couple of years. And then this year, I know there was another additional hire that did help kind of alleviate the concerns that we potentially would have out there for having those segregation of duties. The fact that that was something that happened during the fiscal year, there was a portion of the year where that still was, quote unquote, an issue. But I anticipate that next year with the same controls, same people in place, that comment will completely go away next year.
But to be clear, not something that's uncommon with
No, not at all.
someplace with a small staff.
Exactly, yeah, that's a fairly common comment we have, yep.
I've got to just chime in here. In years past, it's just been kind of generally accepted that that was going to be the case because we're a small team. And I want to give the credit to Linda. I know you mentioned my name, but Linda Barnett, our manager of accounting and finance, is the one who saw this issue and saw that we could actually resolve it, and worked with the auditors to make sure that this is proper segregation duties, and she implemented it. We were able to hire an accountant, of course, to help with that. But the credit is Linda's, and I'm excited that this will be one that can come off of here finally.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. I did also have a question on, and this might be a billing question. You said that the fund balance overperformed and that we're going to be at 55% rather than the recommended 40 to 48%. Given that we just took a look at the budget, and it is possible that we will have maybe an additional savings or additional funds, is there any sort of, are there any sort of negative implications to that? Like if that fund balance went beyond the 55%?
So the 40 to 48% target range is just what the library has chosen as the policy, is where you want it to be at. It's not like a standard requirement that it has to be between there. You could see kind of how your fund balance falls on a year-over-year basis, or even more frequently than that, and see if that makes sense, that that's the range you want it to be within. But if you have fund balances in the general fund that keep increasing year over year, then you may have issues with people looking at that and saying, okay, well, you're sitting on all this fund balance, you're not spending it. Obviously, you're collecting property tax revenues. They might look at that and say, well, why do you need all this money if you're not spending it, essentially? And that's the only concern I would say, is if it grows too much, that's where people might look at it. Residents might look at that and say,
But it would be at the discretion of leadership, finance, the board, to decide that 40 to 48% was not sufficient, that we wanted it to be, I don't know, something ridiculous, like 112%. Like that would be within the purview of the board and the leadership here for us to make that decision.
It would be, yeah, and that would be, it should be based on kind of like your finances internally, if that makes sense, to be carrying that much fund balance on a recurring basis, keeping it at that levels. If it doesn't make sense, then you obviously wouldn't want to change the policy to state that. So I would just, like I said, monitor that, kind of look at historical information as well, and obviously look ahead as well. If you have, capital projects, for example, that you may have in the future, you're going to utilize some of those funds on, you don't want to then try and draw down that fund balance if you know you're going to have to spend it on something in the future as well.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna revisit that in the finance committee next year.
Good deal. Yeah, given the conversation we just had on that.
Yeah.
Do we, don't we?
Oh, do we have a higher reserve amount? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we're gonna do.
Okay. I think that was all the questions I had. Anybody else? If not, then thank you very, very much for the report.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for spending some time here with us and explaining and answering questions, and I'll let you run off and you have your evening back to yourself.
All right, thanks everyone, I appreciate it. And if you do have any other questions that do come up, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to get back to you on anything that I have, so.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom.
All right. Our next action item is the volunteer policy. So the policy was last approved February of '08 and revised November of '25.
Sure.
And this is around volunteers coming to work with or volunteer with the library staff. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the last time you mentioned, the last time this policy was reviewed was probably when it was implemented in 2008. So it's due for a review, we call it a routine review, but we'll try to be more regular with that. Our goal with updating this policy was to align more with like how we currently talk about the volunteer program internally, and making sure that the board is kind of okay with how we're talking about it. It's not to set up a whole volunteer program, it's just that the policy that would allow that program to exist. This policy has been discussed with the governance committee, and so I welcome any feedback or any comments from Nika and the governance committee. But really, we have a lot of recommended changes, but it's really just to strengthen the policy. to clearly define what a volunteer is, and, you know, kind of manage those expectations, and add some language around, you know, like, it's got at the discretion of management whether they can take on a volunteer, and if they have the capacity to manage and train a volunteer. Also, volunteers will not replace paid employees. Volunteers will supplement the work, and just making that language a little clearer and stronger. So yeah, those are some of the goals that we had when going through and updating this policy.
And the governance committee recommends.
Yeah.
The adoption.
I have a question.
Okay.
Does this cover people who are, sorry, my battery's going at the same time. Does this cover volunteers for the book fair?
I would say no, because those are volunteers through the Friends, and the Friends are a separate 501c3
Right,
organization.
that's what I was trying to.
They are in our space,
Right.
but this, just as any other visitor or patron would be in our space.
Okay, so it doesn't cover that, okay. Because then, you know, some of the questions I had were probably related to that, like, when it's talking about, or benefits of any kind, it was like, you know, do people get like, you know, the book tote, you know, if they volunteer, that sort of thing, would that be considered benefit of any kind?
Separate.
But
Yeah,
that's
I would
separate,
say,
they're
the de minimis things that you might get, like library swag, would not be considered a benefit in that situation.
Okay, so that's not, okay.
I would say that, there's a term de minimis benefit, like something that's like less than $25 value, is not, considered a benefit.
Well, some of the swag's more than that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, where it was talking about, recurring under eligibility requirements, currently volunteers, will not perform central recurring or core library functions. I just wasn't sure like what would constitute recurring.
Yeah, you know, I went back and forth with that word about, is that the correct word we want to use there? And it's like the ongoing, ongoing regular permanent work. You know, we use volunteers like supplement things. We don't. An example would be when I first started here, we had volunteers doing our home delivery. They were the ones driving the cars, they were the ones delivering the materials. And that is something that, as soon as we could, we switched that to in-house. You know, the pandemic kind of forced that change, but switched to in-house, and we're paying our paid employees to do that regular recurring work. I think it goes along the lines, if you don't want volunteers replacing paid staff, I think that's the language that we're using to kind of drive that home.
I really like the part about the alignment with library values. That was really
we should be good.
Okay, what are some examples of current use of volunteers?
Yeah, so before the pandemic, we had a fairly robust volunteer program. Since the pandemic, we've kind of only allowed volunteers as the need arises and as we had capacity to manage the volunteer. Volunteers, I'm thinking of like, what's a recent example? I think in our middle and high school services, I know that they had some volunteers that help out with afternoon activities. We haven't done this in a while, but like community service, people who may need community service hours, we may do that on a limited basis as we have, work or as we have projects that need to be assisted with and have the capacity to manage. But really, it's just really on an as needed, in a case-by-case basis. I will say though that this volunteer policy does, when I talked about the robust volunteer program in 2019 and before, we had a part-time volunteer coordinator who was managing all that. It's a lot of work to manage. When I got here and I was learning about the volunteer program, I was like, one of the things that really stuck to me is that the volunteer coordinator said, we don't offer a volunteer program because the library needs volunteers. We offer a volunteer program because the community wants to volunteer, because the community wants to volunteer here, or the community asks for it, the community needs it. And so, I think we do have some room for volunteers in our organization. I don't know if we have this large, robust need for volunteers here.
Right, that's one of the reasons I asked the question, because I had a former neighbor asking me about volunteering because her retired father had moved in with her.
Mm-hmm.
Her parents had moved in with her, and he was looking for something to do with some sort of volunteer. Love the library.
Yeah, there is a lot
library.
of library love in the community.
Right.
A lot of people want to help us out.
Right, but it is, when you have an intern or a volunteer, there's always that, how much work you put into getting, to supporting that, that position, so.
And one of the things that came from our meeting was to put them in touch with friends. Like that's the way to sort of get people in the community that are interested to get a volunteer program. Probably a more efficient way, that came up with.
Yeah, we do
more
capacity, we do
capacity.
connect them with the friends, but we also have, so in this period, as we kind of came out of the pandemic, and then we were like, people are wanting to volunteer, but we don't have, necessary opportunities at the library, we've created a whole volunteers page on our website that we can refer people to that has all sorts of organizations in Oak Park that need volunteers and are asking for volunteers, so we encourage them to go to those places. That's where we are today. This policy would allow, gives us the freedom to, we could, not that I'm proposing to do this tomorrow, but at some point implement a more robust volunteer program.
Often when people reach out, they also suggest things like, I feel like I could do story time, I could do team programming, I could help with the collections, and I think that there's a little bit of the library being sort of victim to our staff expertise there, because staff make things look really straightforward. And it's hard to see sort of the early literacy expertise, the collection curation pieces, and those are complex conversations, but I think it's better for everyone if we have those at point of interest and don't bring people in and have disappointment.
Yeah.
Excellent point. I'd really love to hear that there's also resources for people, so that if there's, interest, so we can kind of match people in the community. That's great.
We have a great team of staff, librarians and other staff who want to provide the resource. Like this is generated from staff who want to provide resources to people. Like you ask us a question, we can't answer it, but here's something else you can look into.
That's fantastic.
All right, so I hear that the recommendation from the governance committee is that we accept this policy as it has been amended?
Yes.
So,
Seconded.
I guess I'm entertaining motions and it has been moved and it has been seconded. All right. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? the volunteer policy amendments have been approved. And we will now take a look at the workplace violence policy. Thank you very much for making this more robust in a lot of places and adding a lot of nuance.
There were a lot of things missing from this policy, things that have developed over the last 22 years, you know, since the last. Except November 18th, in fact, November 18th, 2003. And, you know, we were babies. We did take a look at this, from, you know, what updates we wanted to make to it, and then provided that version to the governance committee, and I think overall, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm going to here. I think overall, you're okay with the
Yes.
revisions, but there was a concern that was brought up about, like, okay, we know this is an employment policy, and it is about staff and how staff treat staff, but what about how the public or patrons, their actions towards staff? And, you know, after that, receiving that feedback, thought a little bit more about it. I did talk to an attorney at HR Source and asked about how to strengthen some of the language in here. And we were able to strengthen this language actually quite a bit to be more explicit about our expectations, both for staff and for any third parties being patrons, visitors, vendors, anyone else in our library. Or not just in our spaces, but also at any library event offsite as well. So that's, I mean, I think there's a lot of changes in the policy, but I think that's like the big one that I'm most excited to get incorporated into this policy. Of course, you know, clear consequences for staff or for third parties, and also a clear anti-retaliation clause. Those things were missing from previous policy.
Yeah, I see the strengthening of that language, that's great.
You
Yeah,
spoke
it-
well for us.
Yes.
Yeah, it's said in like two or three different places in the policy about the third party and how we have a zero tolerance for their actions.
Is the retaliation bit, like, would that have been true without it being in this policy, since we have like another policy that kind of has that, or I just want to make.
Yeah, so, yes, generally it's true in any case, but like, you wanna like emphasize it when it comes to these, like, if you're only reading this policy, when you get to the end, you wanna see that in there, just like the, anti-harassment, non-discrimination policies, the anti-bullying policy, any ones that like, would like, are saying that there's a complaint or an investigation, it's nice to have this like solid language in here that makes it clear what our position is.
Got it.
I noticed with the lists that we're talking about, you know, patron, vendor, coworker, you know, visitor, in most places it includes all of them. There's one place under the prohibited conduct, bullet 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, student and visitor, and I didn't know if that was intentionally excluded or.
It was not intentionally excluded.
Can we make that amendment?
What was what's missing?
It says,
Visitor, okay. Yeah, I mean, I could just edit it to say, I would just add in visitor into that line of.
No, that's a good bullet, I want that.
No, it's fine, I did not edit that section. No, this is actually a section that was edited by our attorneys, but no, I didn't go through that piece.
And then
I can add that change.
actually in that section under prohibited conduct, where it said engaging in fighting horseplay, I was just wondering what horseplay is there, and I was thinking about this primarily with regard to the high school area, high school program, and is this how that might be perceived by.
Well, when I'm seeing that, I think it's what is horseplay? Like pretend fighting, back and forth, like something that might perceive to be fighting playing out. I think it's a subjective, kind of a blurry word. I agree. So
Would you prefer play fighting? Is that clear?
I don't know, I was just wondering like what it is and then how that, I was just thinking about historical kind of, what seems like barriers to certain groups of people being invited into spaces.
Like somebody's interpretation of horseplay.
Right,
Okay.
and particularly, yeah, just wanting to make sure that we're not kind of going back to the, you know, these are the rules and all the why you can't be here. And just that word just struck me as a little,
Well, but I think if you look at it on the whole, when it says fighting or dangerous to others, I mean, we could change the word, but I think in the context of that, it's clear that it's something that is
Could we say,
potentially.
like, fighting physical aggression or other conduct that may be dangerous to others?
Sure.
Because I hear what you're saying, like, horseplay is culturally subjective, and
yes.
I might suggest that this whole section is like not supposed to be an exhaustive list, it's like just like examples of things. You could just strike horseplay, like just simply just strike
Yeah.
horseplay,
I think
and the
it's,
sentence is still.
I think we should think about, the reason it's in here in the first place, which to me is when people do engage in play aggression, that can be really concerning to others. So if we're allowing that, we are disallowing some other people to enjoy the space. And I think it can put staff in a really difficult position when somebody says, hey, there's a fight. And they say, I think it's play fighting, like, we're not sure, we can go talk.
And this is a staff policy, remember, this would have to involve a staff member, either a patron, visitor, third party on staff, or against staff, or staff against staff. And so this is
Right.
so this wouldn't be between two.
two patrons, it's not between two middle schoolers, or two two patrons in the library spaces.
Okay.
This is an interaction between, now I'm kind of rethinking that, I'm like, would you like to see a staff member horseplaying with, with another staff member on the public floor?
No.
No, but I also have difficulty imagining.
Thanks for looping us back.
Yeah.
I think
It's not patron with patron.
in that
Yeah, got it.
lens, I do think including something about play fighting is appropriate, because we could have a staff who thinks that's funny and another staff who doesn't.
Yeah, I just, the
We could just
term
change
felt
horseplay to play
loose
fighting,
and
if that's what we mean by it.
how's that interpreted? That it could be interpreted by one party a different way than by another. So just me and words.
Is that an amendment that we want to make?
Do we want to change it from horseplay to play fighting?
Or is there a more descriptive term?
I think it's fine.
If it's, now that we know it's not patron or patron, although I'm curious, do we have a patron patron policy too, on how patrons need to interact with
We'll
each
get there,
other?
right?
Exactly.
I think that horseplay is more broadly interpreted than play fighting. Play fighting is very clear. You're fighting and it's pretend. Whereas horseplay, I just feel like that invites a lot of definition. So is this the most important thing? Not necessarily, but would I prefer the clarity of the specificity of play fighting? Yes.
We can make edits and approve with edits, so it doesn't slow us down.
Yeah. I mean, if the list is not meant to be exhaustive, then.
No, it's meant there to give an idea, and actually, this is a pretty robust idea of what's not permitted, or what's not allowed.
So let's edit to closing.
Okay. And then also add, visitors to bullet point.
Under corrective action, on the second page, where it's talking about, engages in behavior that the library in its sole discretion deems offensive or inappropriate. I have again the question of, is that too broad and up to perception from cultural standards, just questioning it. I don't have the answer.
So I view this policy as the board saying, like, you're giving the permission to the executive director to make that interpretation. It's, so that's how I'm reading, when it says that the library has sole discretion, you could substitute that to the executive director or, and whoever the executive director is, relying on for counsel. Yeah, so the board would be granting permission for the executive director to use their discretion.
I'm thinking more from the standpoint of like staff who's, I don't know, maybe staff don't read the policies through, or somebody who's being hired who's new to the cultural environment here, just questioning, is that gonna be understood the same from different vantage points, and is that too broad?
Well, again, if this is for our employees, then at the discretion of the library, I would think would go through their managerial hierarchy. So it may not necessarily be elsewhere specifically, but it would.
Or inappropriate is the part that I was questioning.
Oh, okay.
Not the discretion, I'm not questioning
I think that that's,
buzzword through,
that the broadness there is intentional because it could be something as innocuous as leaving a note on a workspace. If that's done once, that might be fine. If that's done excessively, that might be inappropriate. So to me, it speaks more to the situational nature of what could be problematic. And I think my interpretation of this policy is it would be rare that something would happen that we would come in and say, we deem that offensive. It would be more that there has been ongoing documented conversation about, hey, this behavior needs to stop, it's causing a problem, but it's not resolved. I'm not stuck on that particular language. If there's a term that could be replaced, I think it's fine.
I have an unrelated question, but I don't know if this is resolved.
again, I just asked the question, then raised the conversation among other folks, so if other people are not seeing a concern.
I think I'm comfortable with it from the view of microaggressions, where that's really very, very hard to define. And this leaves the leeway for something that is not offensive to one person to be registered as offensive to another person because of those kinds of microaggressions. So somebody calling somebody articulate, that is different for different folks. This covers the fact that that can be deemed as offensive for one person and not another, and that gets to be interpreted by the folks who understand our ethos or our othering and belonging, our DEI perspective, that it's not going to be in that list of other things. That was my interpretation for that, is like it's leaving space for the, you know it when you see it, but how do you define it things?
And Suzanne, something I would add to all of this is, how often have, over my last 8 years here, how many times have they referenced this policy? Twice. We're not going around looking for, things we might deem offensive or inappropriate. But in relation to this policy, yeah, it's twice is when I've had to reference it. So, in both cases were clearly, it was not like you didn't have to deem it inappropriate, it was clearly, it fell into the categories of prohibited conduct.
And we do, our onboarding includes kind of going over policy with new staff, and if there were questions, there are many steps along the way that somebody could engage.
So my question was, I was just curious about your interpretation of bullying. My understanding of workplace bullying is that it's most often in the form of like psychological violence, things like ostracization, so did I say that right? Ostracization. I'm just curious about you, given that you would be in a position to sometimes interpret subjective things, I'm just curious your perspective.
We have an anti-bullying policy that's completely separate from this policy.
I'll raise it.
Goes
We're
into
not
all
there
of
yet.
it.
Defines.
And
Bookmark that.
That was actually done recently.
Yeah, it was definitely.
It's not all of them that needs to be updated.
And I would say we would use several different tools when we're looking at that. So HR source, benchmarking with other libraries, looking at the general, current research on it. But I do think, I don't remember, so if the bullying policy was done in.
Like, within the last 2 years, I
Okay.
think it was.
So that may not come up for another 2 or 3 years for regular review, but we could prioritize it if you'd like to look at it.
I can think about that.
And our policies are available on our website if you want to just take a look at it. But I think it's great to have the anti-bullying policy, the workplace violence policy, harassment, non-discrimination policy, all of these things working in tandem, equal opportunity employment, that you can pull from several policies, say, we've told you in 2 different ways that this conduct wasn't tolerated, so if we don't get you under this one, it's over here, so. Sorry, that sounded horrible.
Don't get you here, we'll get to that.
We're covered in from multiple angles,
Yes.
to make it clear what our expectations for workplace behavior are.
Basically, we don't like harassment and violence.
Yes.
We're all on the same page.
Yeah.
And that's a good reminder that the deems offensive or inappropriate, this is under the umbrella of the
Workplace
anti-violence.
Yeah.
It's, that phrase to me though, like, when I see deems offensive or inappropriate, there's a lot of people think that my very existence is offensive and inappropriate, so it always like catches my attention. But this is within the context of violence, so.
I mean, I think if you have alternative language, we can make edits right now before approval.
No, if everybody's good with it, I'm just saying, I'm explaining kind of why it
No, I get it.
catches my attention, because it says who, and the utter faith in you, Gosworth, but it's a policy as we see can last well beyond the duration of the meeting.
Not anymore. We fixed that problem.
Not anymore now that we've got a governance committee.
That's right. What did I just sign up for?
It says exclusion from the library, that's like, if a patron, is committing, violence, like they could be permanently banned from the library, is that what that means?
So, yeah, actually, I worked with Rob Simmons, our Director of Public Safety and Social Services, to kind of make sure this mirrors what we're currently doing. And the original language actually had like a potential ban from the library or something like that, but, or potential permanent ban from the library, which is, it could go up to that. But, depending on the patron or visitor's behavior, it could be like, hey, just take the day off, or take 3 months off, or 6 months off. We really try to stay away from that permanent ban language. Actually, maybe the longest I've seen is 1 year. But it gives, this is talk about strengthening the language, about what tools do we have in our toolbox to for our team to take action against, patrons who may be violating this policy towards our staff.
And therefore, taking care of their staff.
Yes, yeah.
Any other questions? I think we have 2 amendments that we wanted to make
Do you just review it?
on this. One was the changing of horseplay to play fighting, and the other was adding visitors to the 6th bullet point, intentionally damaging the libraries, a patrons, a vendors, a co-workers, or a visitor's property. So I will entertain a motion to approve the workplace violence policy inclusive of those 2 amendments that we just discussed.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Wonderful. And then we will go ahead and look at the scheduled building closures. I do want to just go ahead and call to everyone's attention that the first one is January 1st, so we will want to make sure we get this approved today so that everyone can.
I can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry, that we will want to make sure we get this approved today because the first date on there is January 1. If I am correct, we generally publish the closures 3-4 months in advance.
This is an annual process that the board goes through to approve the next year's closings. This is typically, we did it last year in October, or a month later, but yeah, we'd like to get them up as soon as possible. So the public is aware of our closings.
And then the full list will be listed as a policy, because it's a policy document, and on any calendars that we put out, they're identified as soon as that calendar is released.
Okay.
And the list is substantially the same. The holidays are all the same. The one thing that we want to make sure we keep doing the staff learning engagement day on last Friday in January, so that's still in there. And then also last year, because of where July 3rd was on Thursday, we ended up closing early at 5 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock. But because July 3rd, and it's on Friday this year. So July 4th is on a Saturday. So, and on the Friday before that, we'd be closing normally at 6 o'clock, so we don't feel like we need to make any adjustments.
And just as a note, when we publicize closures for the public, we say the date that the library is closed, and we do not give a specific reason. We just say it's a closure.
I've been appreciating seeing that.
Do we have any discussion on the 2026 closings? I will entertain a motion then to approve the scheduled building closings policy for 2026.
So,
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
I,
All those opposed? Abstentions? All right, the scheduled building closings for 2026 has been approved then. Thank you, Billy.
and thank you to Billy and to the committee for the work that you did getting this. This is super helpful to have it done in the committee. Thank you.
You're always welcome.
Yeah, you're always welcome to come.
You know, if you want to have long discussions on this policy, it's a great place to come.
Trustee comments and
To the calendar. She couldn't hear us, so I just said come. She's inviting you to come.
Thank you.
trustee comments and calendar. December 1st at 5 p.m. will be the next governance committee meeting. And we do have an action item. Traditionally, we don't generally have a December meeting. People are traveling, not a lot that gets done. My hope is if we do cancel the December meeting, we can each use December to kind of go into what the individual committees have been working on. I know the committees got started right after election, and then there was the strategic session, and then we had budget conversation. I feel like we haven't had a time to like sit down and really hash out what we'd like to do for 2026. So not having a board meeting in December does not mean that we would not have committee meetings, or that we would not have any, special meetings or something if there is another policy or something we need to pass. But canceling the regular meeting would sort of allow for that breathing space, and then we would reconvene in January. Is there any discussion on this? Does anyone have any super strong opinions on this? Does anybody have anything that they were relying on having on the December agenda?
When you say like what we're planning for 2026, what does that entail?
So the finance committee, I'm gonna just speak for it, Colin. I think they've spent a lot of their time the last few months just looking at the budget. And then we've had some really close meetings together, with this being moved up because of Thanksgiving, and then this one would be moved up because of Christmas, there's holidays. So I don't think they've had a chance to sit down and really decide what the priorities are. We handed a lot to the finance committee of, what do we want you to do in 2026? What do we want to look at? And allowing them to sort of go through and prioritize. Similarly, the governance committee got putting policies in front of us. I think it would be nice for them to get a little bit more running room with scheduling those out a little bit further, maybe taking a look at training and things. And then the advocacy committee, we've asked a lot of that committee in a lot of different directions, and giving them a little time to just sort of, given that we know a little bit more of the lay of the land, how things are working politically, being able to be a little bit more pointed about what's on the agenda there. So just sort of giving everybody 30 days to get a little bit more organized.
Yeah.
I'm also hoping, Suzanne, you and I can look at the pieces that came out of the strategic session.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask, because I was like, I think I'm clear on committees, but I was wondering if you meant more like board-wise.
There are some things that I think are gonna come out of the strategic session. And I know Ellsworth has already been working on a few of those sort of internally along with staff that will either be then funneled to the correct committee or will be brought to the board.
Okay.
But there's a lot of overlapping there, and I would also just like a little bit more
Oh,
time to
yeah.
dig into all of that so that we have a good cohesive plan.
Sounds good.
So I will first ask all of the committee chairs, do you all feel comfortable not having a board meeting? Do you still feel comfortable? I see that there's already a governance committee meeting. Do you all feel comfortable having other committee meetings during December or the early parts of January to sort of?
Yeah,
Yes,
Yes.
it's fine.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we didn't come up with a date because we were gonna skip December, but early January,
Yes,
come up with something on the 6th or the 13th or
for
something.
finances.
So yeah, once I text the finance committee, I'll make sure that you have the date that you choose.
Yes, and we're planning to meet the first, because our schedule is usually to meet after the meeting rather than before the meeting, so we're meeting after this meeting
Okay.
as opposed to before, but yes, we can still plan to meet.
Annie, you're comfortable with?
Yes, it's fine.
All right, good deal. Then I will entertain a motion for canceling the December 16th regular board meeting.
Second,
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you very much, folks. And 2026 Board of Trustees meeting dates. I know, Christina, you had done some work on this before.
Yeah.
As a refresher, we are looking at this because there are a lot of overlapping meetings in the community. We want not only ourselves, but other community members to be able to be engaged here with the library board as well as with other taxing bodies or other groups in the community without feeling like they have to pick and choose or sacrifice. So
Well, how did we get to this point? It's because the village moved theirs, correct? A year ago, the village went from Mondays to Tuesdays.
It's kind of been an ongoing problem, I'll say. Like Luann has been
They did.
pushing for this for as
Who's
long.
Luann?
She's over IGov, like she's the IGov administrative support. She works with the township as, she's the clerk of the township, and she has been doing IGov since its origin. So this has been, and she has a very good pulse, I'd say, like on all the 6 entities, and she's been pushing for this for some time. It's just like, from her perspective, this has been just a challenge.
So if other taxing bodies also move their schedules around,
No, we are the easiest. We
they're
have,
not the easiest, I don't like that. I mean,
we have the fewest meetings.
okay,
yeah,
We have the fewest meetings of all of the bodies, is what my research shows. Maybe you could argue like parks sometimes, but they really meet every other week, so that's
well, I'll say fewest regular
regular meetings.
Because
yeah.
now that we've instituted the committees, we may have more meetings, but this
Sure.
is about the full board.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, Megan, like, why do we have to be the ones to change?
well, it's not just why are we, I mean, we as library trustees, our fiduciary duty is to the library. It's actually not to the other taxing bodies, it's actually not to anything else. And we have staff that has already made Tuesdays the day that they're gonna be here. I mean, Ellsworth, I don't know if you wanna speak more to that, but their staff stays late, families that have made commitments, and so just to say, we're gonna move it, does make me uncomfortable. I
It just
mean,
feels like such a strange reaction to this, to be honest. From my perspective, it's like we serve the community is not being served when there are 4 competing meetings on the same night.
So the people who work for the library, in the libraries who we
Yeah,
serve.
and we're talking about a January meeting. We edited 2 meetings, like, when I'm looking at September, October, November, we had a 3rd Tuesday, 4th Tuesday, 2nd Tuesday. It's not out of the ordinary.
Well, as long as it
to move
doesn't interfere with the library, the staff of the
Of
library,
course,
and people.
of
well,
course, that's a given. I feel frustrated by this only because I've made that so clear in like every correspondence that like, we would never move forward without staff. That is a given, that is a given. I will say that again, like, that is a given. But I think it's a worthwhile endeavor to get us somewhere else. Like, this is crazy. Looking at this list, there's so many competing meetings and
So this list here is all Tuesdays that we've put on here, they're just different Tuesdays.
Oak Park River Forest meets Thursdays.
No,
so
I'm
they're-
saying the board.
These are all
individuals.
Tuesdays, these are all the
These are the
fourth
old ones.
Tuesday, except for the ones that have been moved
forward.
for the
It's the
holidays.
4th Tuesday.
You're looking at different
That's a normal,
We're
What
looking at
Colin
the
is
board
looking
meetings.
at is the
Instead of
list
board
in the board packet,
Right,
which
which is
shows,
And those are all Tuesdays.
I understand, I know what I'm looking at, I know okay.
But we're not planning to move it from Tuesdays then.
We don't have to, we could move it to a different Tuesday, but then that comes into the cadence of like putting together a board packet, so it might be, like,
That is where I have concerns
Yes.
with accommodating staff. I'm more concerned with if we move this from the 4th Tuesday to the 4th Wednesday, I feel like that, and staff can correct me, that aligns a little bit more with their ability to get reports on the same schedule and the same cadence versus if we moved it from the 4th Tuesday to like the 1st Tuesday.
Which doesn't help the situation anymore.
I'm not going to fight this, and I just think it's strange to not want to be collaborative in this effort. So like, if the board doesn't care about this, I'm not gonna push it through, but like, it does surprise me and confuse me, but.
I share your concerns and interest in ensuring that we we coordinate amongst bodies that are all, we share as constituents in this community. And ask questions, make an effort to find out if we could organize ourselves collectively to make ourselves the most accessible to our community, because I believe in our mission, we value that. So I agree with that, and I think that it is absolutely worthwhile to explore whether that is a possibility that doesn't put an undue burden on staff and relieves the undue burden that's currently put on our community.
I would like there to be able to be more participation in library board meetings. I feel like if you can go to a library board meeting or you can go to a village board meeting, folks are going to go to the village board meeting. And I would like folks to feel like they can participate more often and they can come here. I think that's a big part of getting folks to run for this office as well, is being able to come, being able to attend, and not just watching it on YouTube. So I'm also a fan of if there is so much overlap with all of these different groups, and it sounds like there is on the 4th Tuesday, us leading the charge with showing that we are being deliberately collaborative, that, you know, we are willing to shake up our schedules a little bit in order to accommodate the community and make sure that the community can participate. I agree, I don't want any undue burden on the staff, so we will have to make sure that whatever days that we select work for the staff. I also want to say, you know, if people have already made plans for January and February, we don't have to move those dates.
Right.
We can make this something that starts as of March, as of April, like we haven't moved this meeting in
We
like
could even try to
years.
rotating, like if we hate Tuesdays, or we wanna hold on to Tuesdays, we could do Tuesdays 1 month and Thursdays another, or something. I mean, I just think like shutting it down before we even try feels too bad for me, like
It seems like the immediate next step is to get information.
I have information.
From staff. And
Okay.
we have information from other boards and input like from the community. My question is, what would a process look like to find out how doable
Ellsworth, do you see a
We
problem?
did hear some
Yeah.
from staff the other day, in the, I've lost track because I've been in so many different meetings. But, Susan was talking about it being like earlier in the month would be something hard.
Yeah.
And for us, it would mean that we would like get information,
Like 2 months behind.
yeah, like we would,
That's
it
not
would be
what
as
we're-
current. So that's an issue, but day of the week, I don't think is.
I can speak to logistics a little bit. If we move it earlier in the month, really by much, even looking at sort of third week, there will be a month delay in many of the reports. We can reconfigure the reports that we completely own, so our priorities reports, our staffing reports, but anything that relates to other calendar stuff, so our financials and things like that, you would be approving a month and a half behind what you're doing now. So that would be something the board would need to decide, do we have a tolerance for that? I do not think we would be out of line with any statutes or regulations. We can look at that in governance to make sure, but
I think we can set it, I mean,
I think it would, so that would be a change, and there's a transparency element in that I don't love, but I think it's also not the worst that we can do. I would really advocate for consistency. I think moving from Tuesdays to Thursdays or first to third is an access issue for the community. I think that when we say we meet on the fourth Thursday, or fourth Tuesday except for these months of the year, that's a lot more, people can remember it, people can think about it in a different sense. So I would say, really, we can probably accommodate anything the board wants to do. I think consistency is probably the most important to me, just in terms of access. And I think if we're consistent and we pick something that we're kind of gonna try for a while, we can probably make it work. I mean, I think that we have some leadership staff who have, their spouses have had work schedule changes to accommodate this, or we made accommodation to be able to prioritize this. Can those things be changed? Probably. Some may take longer than others, but I would advocate again, look, if we want it to be more accessible to the public, let's commit to trying something for a length of time. Let's keep, obviously, the times consistent, the days of the week consistent, and if we can have a cadence that's the same week of the month every time, that will be a benefit. I don't know if we want to establish any metrics around accessibility, like do we want to track, what feedback we get, do we get more participation? I don't know that we know that the day of the week or the week of the month is a barrier or not. There are days when other meetings are canceled that we haven't seen an influx, but so if we want metrics, I think we could define those as part of this conversation.
I will say, I'm not terribly comfortable with us approving things a month and a half
I agree.
behind. That makes me really uncomfortable.
Especially the finances, that we're gonna always be behind, that's not ideal, so.
I agree, and I think that a much easier move would be switching from
The day
that
of the
Tuesday
Yeah.
to just one day
So,
later.
yeah, that's my
Wednesday.
specific question, would that
yes,
be
there is
possible?
staff that has changed their schedule for this. I mean, this is conversations we've had, let's be.
I think that we do have staff that have, leadership team staff that have kind of made life choices around this. But those, I don't think that anything's written in stone, and I think if we wanted to change it and we had some time to prepare for that, I think it would also mean extending grace if someone says, no, like I have the next 4 meetings planned and I cannot come to a Wednesday meeting for 4 months. And the board says, we are committed to making a change. We can accept that we will not have whatever leadership team member there, then that can be their choice.
I mean, I have made, like work schedule choices based on this, and I would be willing to sort that out, and people who know me know that's not an easy situation. But I would be willing to sort that out because I
Same.
care enough
And
about
the
that.
same thing
About
That's exactly right. It's like, last year I had a job where I regularly had Tuesday evening meetings and I had to decide between attending those versus ours. And like, We've actually never had a discussion as a board of like, does Tuesdays work best for us all, like at least as far as I've been on it. And so even this presumption that like this is best because it's what we do is kind of, it's giving me a lot of pause, because I'm just like, this wasn't a choice, like whatever, it's.
I did hear from one community member who was interested in running for the board and opted not to because of the meeting schedule. So I think, again, when we think about access, every choice means yes to some and no to others. But I believe that we could make anything work. I agree with the hesitancy to go earlier in the month. I don't want to put it on the spot, but I'm correct that that would impact financial.
The few times that we've moved up the meeting a week, recently, it feels like it's a constant pressure to like make sure we get all the reports out on time.
Yeah, and I don't think it helps the situation anyway.
From a days of the week perspective, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays are fine by me.
Can we do Wednesdays then? Because nobody has meetings on Wednesdays.
One of the other governing
Yeah.
bodies.
And then we could do like every fourth Wednesday, like we could keep the consistency, we could keep later in the month, and then,
That's for me.
Would we feel like we need to start that right away, like we need to start it in January?
I think we should, with that, I think it'd be better to do
Systematically.
maybe March.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I'm asking specifically the 6 people across from me. Have you already rearranged your life around the 4th Tuesday of January, February, March
I mean.
in such a way that we would need to delay
I
change?
have, like I used to teach on Tuesdays and I changed it to Wednesday evenings. But I looked at the calendar and I can make it work. Is it preferable for me to start March or February? Yes. But I can make it work, so that's.
What about staff in terms of January versus March?
I mean, I think March would be easier. I still think we could have barriers for some folks, but that's okay.
Okay.
I think if we could do a February or March, that would feel more planful.
Yeah, that's.
I mean, again, it's not Tuesdays to my benefit, but.
Yeah, and this
also-
isn't personal to me,
Yeah.
my life is pretty open, I can do almost any day. I just think that Tuesday is what we have set. I think people's lives that are outside this room too, that have to staff, I just think that, I think Ellsworth is being very generous. I think it is a big ask of staff. So if everyone agrees to it, even if I vote no, I'm still, it's symbolic.
Yeah.
But for me, this is more of a statement about rearranging everything for staff.
IT concerns. Staff IT a little bit different.
I don't think so. We always have an IT staff member in the evening when we're open, so I don't think that would be difficulty.
So I mean, it's really, I'm just trying to figure out who we're talking about.
Yeah.
So we have IT, we have Billy, we have you, me,
And
Ezra.
any other staff that we may invite to the meeting, Susie's not here tonight, so she's often present for board meetings. And the rest of it is staff working on the reporting. But if we're talking about a day, not a week change, that
Then
shouldn't be.
it doesn't matter to them, right?
So I'm hearing that there's a preponderance of individuals, including board and staff, some of whom their lives would work better on Tuesday, others on Wednesday, and a whole group of people who have already made changes and accommodations and are willing to do so again in order to make a body of 15 people or something that we're talking about all available on a single day, which is going to create inevitable conflict. So I'm seeing quite a bit of willingness and flexibility here to change our practices to align with what's best.
My proposal then would be that we start in March.
The fourth Wednesday.
Actually, no, because I'm
That's
looking at the
spring break.
schedule right now, and that's spring break.
Can I jump in there? Spring break for D97 is March 30th through April 3rd. It's actually the 5th week of March, not the 4th week. So I'm looking at the, yeah, I know. I wanted to jump in there to say, because we actually could meet on the 4th, Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever.
Thank you very much, okay.
I'm just trying to buy myself some time from financial reporting. And I have 2 kids 18 and 7, so yeah.
Okay, so
March 24th,
that would be
oh,
the,
sorry, March 25th.
What's the 200?
They're
God, I
lined up.
wish they would align.
Aren't they
I'd like to
aligned?
do
They're not
it.
always.
They don't
I thought they
usually.
like, did that finally the other year.
Oh, maybe.
No, because they want to start do 200 early enough that they can be done with finals by Christmas break or by winter break, so they have, they don't always align. And they also have to align with the sports.
No, thank you all, I'm sorry for getting heated, I'm just, this feels like such a worthy pursuit to me.
I mean, because I would also like to be able to go to a village board meeting, you know, so
Same.
I think like, it is true, it does promote more.
But they did switch it in 2024, the village moved their meetings from Mondays to Tuesdays. So my other point is, we could constantly be chasing other boards.
Well, let's try it.
Well, but have you looked at the list that Christina sent out?
Yeah, I looked at the list.
It's all mostly,
And I purposely this time, I mean, October and November was a weird month, I think, for a lot of different reasons for.
Budget.
Yeah, because they weren't always the consistent, because it's like you'll hear them, yeah, anyway. I'm very grateful to you all for being flexible, we'll try it out, we'll see how it goes. I mean, my hope with this is that we're not the only ones to change, because we're not the only ones that should change, like, ideally, you know,
No, I hope
we
we're
all
just
have
the
different.
first. I hope
That's
we're the
what
leaders of.
I just see it as like a first step, like, we do have maybe an easier lift of it because there are fewer moving pieces, but they're like, yeah, I would like to see all of iGov take this seriously, and so, yeah.
Okay, so are we saying we will keep January 27th? Is it
January 27th.
We'll keep January 27th, February 24th, and then March 24th, or sorry, 25th. We start on the Wednesday on March 25th.
That was my understanding, and I
That would be-
support that.
Yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Okay. And then April 22nd. May 27th. June 24th.
I have a question on June 24th, because I see that ALA is on the 25th. But that's here in Chicago, yes?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
I was just gonna bring that up, Virginia. I don't have the general conference schedule in front of me, but we can address that once, I mean, we don't have time to research it, but there may be major conferences over this. Usually either Susie or I would be here, or certainly somebody from LT. So if I was at a conference for one of these dates, we could negotiate that.
Okay. Or we just go. Okay, so June 24th.
November and
I mean, I wanted to raise the idea of going back to rotating to the different branches, but given how controversial timing was.
I know, right, I was thinking that too, Annie, like, I think they are part and the same, but that would require us to, like, work out the logistics of, all of that.
What would it require?
I don't think we need to hold back on it. I would want to check the meeting room schedules, and speak to branch management about what that might look like for the teams there. But I think we could add that at the next meeting. I mean, you could approve this, and then we could come back and say, you know, these are the dates that would work to do May's Dole. So I don't think you have to do it at the same time.
And Ellsworth, previously when we were meeting at the branches, it was Mays once a year and Dole once a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't a regular.
It wasn't like a
rotation. It was at
rotation.
least once a year at Mays and at least once a year at Dole. It's historical, but I mean, you can change, do whatever you want, of course. Just want to make sure you have that context.
So then I think
Thank you, Willie.
we would still end up moving November and December, so it would be November 18th and December 16th. All right, I will entertain a motion to accept the 2026 Board of Trustees meeting dates calendar as it has been amended, starting in March of 2026 to move our regularly scheduled meetings to the fourth Wednesday of the month, excepting November and December, where we would make the normal shifts to the third week of the month as we currently do. Do I have a motion?
So,
Second?
I have a move and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
All right, motion passes. We will be starting in March, moving meetings to the fourth Wednesday. And Executive Director's Report.
Happy to answer questions. I don't have any updates on any of the pieces outlined. But happy to answer questions.
How did the new director panel go? It's pretty cool.
It was good. It was really fun to learn about the other organizations represented, and to kind of see where the similarities are between challenges and opportunities, and how everybody was approaching the sort of the beginning of their tenure with the organizations. I really appreciated being invited, and it was good.
I'm glad you did that.
Can you talk a little bit more about the Berkeley Center visit that we'll have next month?
Yes, so we'll be welcoming Dr. Zell from the Berkeley Center for Cultural Humility for 2 days to offer training on cultural humility and anti-racism. I just met with Dr. Zell this afternoon to kind of firm up some of the last minute details, and I'm really seeing this as a way to re-engage staff in conversations around these topics in preparation for bringing in a new director of equity and anti-racism who will, early in their time here, work on creating a more full curriculum around this kind of learning. So it felt like bringing someone in again to just kind of to reactivate around that and get staff thinking about different things that they'd like to learn. I think is going to be a real positive. So far, I'm really impressed with Dr. Zell. It feels like he has a practical approach to this and a real expertise. We talked at some length about what our expectations are for anything special to be covered, and we did talk a little bit about some of the specific challenges that we've had in our community, and to make sure we include training that encompasses sort of more than just general anti-racism, but looking at different intersections within that conversation. So I think he was really hearing us, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that's brought forward. So far, staff response has been very positive. I'm hoping that we're able to reach most staff, and I believe that we will also have learning materials shared for anyone who can't attend. They will be able to at least revisit the materials. And again, I'm seeing this as the first step in a much bigger process. It also gives us a chance to interact with Dr. Zell and his center to see if this is an organization that we'd like to continue working with in the future.
How did we run into Dr. Zell?
So Lee and I reviewed lots of different organizations that do this kind of training, and we were specifically looking for an organization that spoke to Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, things that spoke about sort of Middle Eastern experience and racism. The Berkeley Center for Cultural Humility did include that in sort of their frontispiece about training, and then in conversation with Dr. Zell, we felt like that was, that he and his team seemed really ready and able to have the conversation that we need around that. And additionally, the materials on their website seem approachable and again practical, and I think that's going to be good for us right now.
really quite beautiful, I have to add.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
it's,
visual artists on staff that like, it's really stunning.
so I look forward to reporting back, on how it goes, and I can ask Dr. Azal if he's comfortable with materials being shared with the board, and if so, I'll be happy to send those out.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, if there's no other discussion, we can move on to staff reports, strategic priorities report.
I say this every month, but another dense month of reporting in a really positive way. We included some information about staff demographics and the changes that we've seen there. I think it's always great to see positive trends. It also helps us see how far we have yet to go in this work, but I know that there was board concern about the separations and the demographics of separations last fiscal year. It does seem like we've had a good stabilization in that this year, so I feel like progress has been made. We're proud of that, and also there's more work to be done. But if anybody has specific questions, Billy is in the room and can speak more directly to some of that information if you want to do a deep dive. If not, we can move on.
So just quickly to talk about the demographics, there's a shift in retention equity, right? It's not that we have like shifted with an increase in BIPOC staff.
I would say that's accurate. I mean, there have been some slight changes if you look at year over year, but mostly it's the retention equity.
Yeah,
So
the
there's the
representation
work yet to be done.
the representation of BIPOC staff across the, all library staff is essentially, will help the same as it was last year. 43.9% BIPOC, identifying BIPOC staff this year versus 43.7%. It's essentially the same, 43.7% as last year's figure. And I think, I think it's important to remember that, our goal in this, is to build a staff that reflects the diversity in Oak Park, and Oak Park's stated demographic figures, they're included there at the top of that chart. And yeah, you can draw your own conclusions from that about where additional work is needed. But from a race and ethnicity standpoint, I'd say we built a staff that's reflecting the diversity of Oak Park. And I think it's also, these statistics have focused on race and ethnicity. When reporting them, I think it's also time to include different the ways that people identify, that we don't track those as LGBTQ status, ability status, all these, we don't track, we don't have records of that. So anyway, so it's like, I think this, I don't, how do I talk about this? This is, I feel like from where we were last year to where we are this year, this is a great stabilization. I think there's a lot of change and positive changes that have happened over the last year that led to this. And I look forward to how else we might be able to look at diversity in our library, and making sure that this representation is across, grade levels, and different service areas. And generally speaking, it is. I just want to dive a little deeper into that as well.
So, Billy, are you pleased?
I didn't know where these numbers were going to be at this point in the year. Like, I'm kind of aware of them. I knew we had relatively low turnover, but and then as Elizabeth and I were talking about this, like we knew that November was the date we wanted to include these numbers, and yeah, when I saw these numbers, I go, yes, I think the word is stabilization. Like, I feel like that's something That, I think yes, I'm pleased, yes. To say like, I didn't know we would get to this point this year, and then now we're stabilized, well, then where can we go, where will we be next year? And, yeah, I feel like I'm very hopeful about where that might be.
You mentioned looking at sort of other ways that folks identify and that information not being as readily available. Do we feel like that's something that we can look into, or does that start to get fuzzy and uncomfortable trying to get that information in the same way that we did?
Correct, it's not like, I would struggle to kind of justify like why we're tracking it and how we're tracking it, how we keep that information safe. Some of it goes into like medical information, you know, race and ethnicity is one of those that been generally accepted. It's just like gender and like, you know, tracking some of the gender. You might need to have that information in your HR files for something. But when you talk about your ability status, veteran status, sexual orientation, like those are things that like, I have no reason to track that information.
Okay.
It's something that you certainly look into, but I think it's the same, like, you know, we've explored tracking patron information in these ways before, and we've gone away from that, but even when now at it in an employment law environment, it's like, why are we tracking that information? How are we keeping it safe? And how might it be used? And how might it be used to detriment those?
Do we have affinity groups?
We have 5 separate affinity groups.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that was the next question. We have Black, feel free to jump in. A Black affinity group, an LGBTQ plus affinity group,
Older adults.
older adults, and DAGGERS, disability, what was it? Disability
That's a
affinity
great
group.
acronym.
Yeah, DAGGERS. And Latino Latinx affinity group.
Okay, so we do have like a subjective sort of way to keep a pulse on, like, if folks are showing up.
But I don't monitor it, attendance or
No,
track.
no, but like the fact that it exists.
Yes, it exists and people belong to those groups, yes.
Okay. Thank you for answering all of those questions on the spot.
Yeah.
If there's no more questions about that particular piece, there were some comments at the board strategic planning session about staff participation in conferences. So we've been working on communicating that more clearly to the board. So you will see throughout this document a number of times when staff were participating in national work through organizations, presenting or attending conferences. I'll call special attention to LaTanya Jackson, who's the manager of middle and high school services. Her presentation at the Urban Library Council Annual Leadership Forum. I also attended this event, and LaTanya was one of a really strong cohort of professionals who are doing leading edge work at a national level, and I think it's really a point of pride to have our work included in that type of session. So that was great. We also call attention to Claire Ong being in the cohort for Rails Catalyst. That's in our state, but it's still amplifying that work of staff. As many of you know, lots of us went to ILA, and we really appreciate both staff participation and also trustees taking the time to participate in that. We did a upgrade to Windows 11 across all staff and public computers, which might sound like a small endeavor to non-IT folks, but takes a lot of touch to get that done. And the team did a great job. We also continue to work on satisfying the new ADA Title II requirements, And staff have been working not only on addressing that in our online presence, but also creating webinars and tutorials that are accessible. And this is behind the scenes work that has a lot of impact, and we're proud to be sort of exceeding those recommendations. But happy to answer any other questions that folks have.
I did just want to call out that this was a rather difficult Hispanic Heritage Month in Oak Park, and the staff did an amazing job honoring the month, honoring those holidays, pivoting things to keep our community members safe, and then repurposing some of those times to build Whistle Kids, educate folks in the community. It is sad that we needed to do that, but I am extraordinarily proud of the staff and the work that they did to make that possible, and how much that impacted the community. You know, some of us went to the village meeting earlier this month, where they actually talked about the whistle kits that were put together here and the whistles that were printed on the 3D printer and the effort that went into that. We saw lots of people from the community coming into that event, not all the same faces, very much people who said it was. At one point we were like, I just stand here, we don't have anything to do. Like, there was a resounding voice from the community that answered that, but it had to be answered because the staff put together the ability for folks to show up here and have something to do and have something that was productive to do, that felt like it was contributing. So I just wanted to call that out as a very fast, very efficient, very effective pivot that our staff did during Hispanic Heritage Month.
Yeah, I think that staff deserve a lot of credit for that. And in addition to logistics of pivoting, it's also the emotional lift of hearing from the community, listening to other staff, and being able to articulate why we need to make these changes and why this is the best thing for everyone. These decisions are not why anyone goes into public library work, and it feels like a lot of extra emotional work. And we have staff who just lean in and work really hard to make the best environment they can. And we all hope that this period of time resolves and we don't have repeats of this, but it still feels really good to have staff that have these abilities.
Your friend was so beautiful too. Like it was really nice. And I just also think too, like, I think for a while it felt like the anti-racism and equity report didn't feel as like it had teeth maybe, like it was like promoting events that we did that were cultural events and were very important, but like I'm noting a difference where it feels more like actionable of like things that we are doing. And it's not that we weren't doing those things, I think we were just not highlighting them in this way. So I just want to say thanks for that.
I wanted to raise up the SWAT programs. I heard about them through the community, or the puzzle swap through the community. Oh, I heard about the costumes also through seeing pictures within the community, and how much people appreciated that. And I think like bringing together sustainability as well as like community connection, and I think they're both really brilliant ways to kind of be a community resource and gathering space. But I think, and keep more things out of landfill.
Thanks for pointing out the puzzle and costume exchange were both really popular.
Additions and terminations. I see that we have a new civic literacy librarian.
Yes.
What?
Yes, Simon joined us at the very end of December, hit the ground running, already working on some projects and doing lots of networking. Simon is he's a returning staff. He was a book bike assistant previously and has been away and is now coming back as a civic literacy librarian. So I know Alex Skinner has been working closely with Simon to help kind of establish that scope and take on the initial projects.
Where does he sit?
He's in the adult services section, so his workspace is on the third floor in that division's workroom, and he serves on this third floor. Yeah, the third floor reference desk.
Very exciting.
So I'm excited to see, we'll give Simon a minute, but I'm excited to see what we'll see in some of the strategic priorities reports out of him now that we have his expertise here.
You know, you shared in the advocacy committee that he found the program through the village, and I reached out to someone on the village, and it had only just was released at the last village meeting, so she didn't even know much about it. So I guess the village has a new, what are they calling it, like Government 101 about it?
It's
Yeah.
full.
Oak Park
It's
University.
fall?
It's full.
They didn't even promote it, like no one even knows about it.
They released it and within 24 hours it's full? Is that what you
That's-
said?
I don't know if
At
it's
least
been
the-
24
the-
hours,
it
but
was sent to us.
Simon, I guess, was gonna do it,
Oh,
or I think
he
he
is
is
gonna
doing
do it.
it.
He's
applied
doing
to.
it, and I was going to apply too, but it's full.
Well, that's what was forwarded to us.
But what's
unless
good is
I
I
read it
reached
wrong.
out to Jenna, and she had just learned
It
about it,
was
so
in
it's
the
like,
FYI, the Oak Park
Yeah,
FYI, it was listed in there.
Yeah.
oh, that's a very cool thing, it's
Really,
really
really
neat.
It was in the Oak Park
There is a-
FYI,
oh,
like,
wait,
it was
wait,
mailed
wait,
to,
wait,
it was mailed out.
Yeah.
I'm
Read
curious,
mine, yeah, it's still
did it say if it covers other governing bodies, because I think that came
It
up
looks
for.
specific to the village,
Just
learn about
village.
village government. You need to meet with village staff.
Yeah, cool.
I think we should roll out a OPPL university.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Simon can start. Third day on the job.
No pressure.
All right.
Any other questions on the staff reports before we move on to financial reports?
No.
All right, moving on to financial reports and the resolutions and disbursements. I know this is a little bit out of order, but Colin, do you have anything that you want to contribute on these since finance committee report is?
No, we kind of went over this part fairly fast. Let me see my notes. Well, it's not really this page about this, but like just overview of the committee meeting. I mean, I'm sure you guys have gotten your property tax bill this week, and then that due date is December 13th, right? 15th. And then we should start getting our funding progressively from.
Yeah, we usually start seeing cash start coming in, probably end of November, first week of December.
So we don't need the bridge, we don't need,
Well, they still voted on that today, didn't they?
I think it was off the
I
agenda.
didn't
It
see
took
it,
off.
I didn't see it.
Okay, that was,
on the-
yeah.
so we don't need anything.
We don't, not now.
At this point, assuming the cash comes in, we will be monitoring.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I thought for some reason everyone knew that already.
Yeah.
Did you know that the library
Leave that
board
on
was
fire.
gonna be an edge of your seat, right? When it came to watching for your tax bill?
They are voting
so
on our
happy to
levy
see my
tonight
tax
though,
bill.
right? Yeah, so they're voting.
Did they still, still on the agenda, or levy?
The levy.
Yeah, the levies
yes,
tonight, I'm
yes.
sure that went fine. So, yeah, TBD on that, we'll see how that went. We discussed the audit, and you guys heard about it right here. Billy went through some notes. I mean, you heard it all, it's pretty much the same thing. We were talking about that there used to be a different practice, now there's a bigger staff, so we're able to delineate those roles and responsibilities. we discussed, what we're thinking about next year. We have to diversify our funds, we'll talk more about this foundation or other ways we can go about it, grants, other things. We're also gonna not explore this as like a, we're gonna do it, but like just understand more about what a district library means, what are all the other different ways, caveats to this, just in case that comes up again. And we'll schedule a meeting for either the 6th or the 13th. January is probably the 13th. Give more time to, I need to talk to Billy and see what it is for him. Hoping you're taking a good vacation. So I want to make sure you're actually ready.
All right, I will circle back then to the resolutions and disbursements, because it sounds like there's not anything specifically out of the finance committee that we need to hear about to take action on this, but it is worth calling out that we will hopefully get funds. Everything here looks in line with where we should be as far as the percentage spent for this being the end of October.
Yeah.
Since we have voted not to have the December meeting, then we would be in January approving both November and December.
Yeah, it would be presented as two different, you would basically have this information twice, in
Once
your-
for November.
Yes,
Just
yeah, so it'll be in the packet. If you print it, just don't.
And also FYI, it looks like the village is reviewing, having a public hearing on the budget and reviewing it, but I don't believe it's up for vote yet. No concerns there, just FYI.
Do I have a motion to approve the resolution on disbursements for October?
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right, financial reports have been approved. Committee reports, Colin, you just gave the finance committee report. All right, governance committee.
Yes, yay, so we met, when did we meet, was it November 3rd? Yeah, we met November 3rd, and we went over the policies that Billy talked about, and then the bigger part of our meeting was Mika presenting a process for us to look at to do an evaluation of the executive director. I came to the meeting a month previous with a very traditional numeric, sort of quantitative, like looking at the job description review, and Mika and Ellsworth promptly said, no, thank you. And they said, you are boring and we are much more creative than this.
We did not say
And
that.
so, no, they did not say that, but Mika did come with an unconventional, much more creative process called the critical response process. It's a tool for evaluation that artists use, and I'm gonna hand it over to Mika for her. It is part of the packet, in the minutes from our meeting, and have Mika talk about it.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so this is, this comes from a place of, we wanted something more humane, like a more humane way of evaluating our leadership, something that could be more collaborative, strength-based, all the good things. And the critical response process, it's in here, but it was created by Liz Lerman, who's a choreographer, and so it comes from a creative practice, like how to workshop art, when you're making it. And it's a process that I've used in my own artistic practice, and also that I use with my students. And as we were trying to think of a better way to evaluate, it occurred to me that, this is also a creative work that Ellsworth does. And so I thought it might be compatible. So I looked to see how we can use that as a base to come up with a process that can feel good for all of us. So ideally, traditionally, like, evaluation is a heavy lift nobody feels good about it, nobody feels like it's really productive, and hopefully this is like, everybody feels better about their work, everybody feels more aligned and inspired and all the good things. It's a very structured, leader-centered method for giving and receiving feedback. It has, and this is what's so vegan, it's actually very structured, very process-based. And it has 3 roles: the creator or the leader, so that would be Ellsworth, and then we as a board, and since we agreed that this evaluation, we would just do board and Ellsworth, I think. And so we would be the responders, and then there would be a facilitator that just, the facilitator does not give opinions, the facilitator is there to just protect the space and the process. So that is sort of the structure of that, and then there are 4 ways to give feedback, or 4 steps, not ways, and these steps have to be followed in this order. The first step is statements of meaning, so only share what resonates, what you connect with, what are the things, oh sorry, I forgot. Ellsworth would first do a presentation, so ahead of time we can tell him, like, we want you to speak to this, you know, we can give him things like that, but other than that, he has the freedom and liberty to present in the way that he feels best shows his work, and then we would respond to that in only positive ways first, and then Ellsworth can ask us questions where he wants feedback, so that's step 2. And then the third one is if we still had neutral questions, and neutral questions are not criticism hidden as questions, but actual neutral questions. And then the fourth one is permissioned opinion. And so in the fourth step, we can give any opinion, but we first have to still ask Ellsworth for permission. Like, I have an opinion about this, would you like to hear it? And this is important because, and he has to be allowed to say, not right now, or, you know, like, whatever, because if you give feedback when someone's not ready for it, it's not heard anyway. And so it's a way to keep the space very protected, very safe, so we can all be vulnerable and explore and be genuine. So that's where I am. And Virginia had sent some questions as well. Did you get the answers to them or no?
Well, I wanted to kind of talk through them here.
Sure.
So I genuinely like the idea of hearing from Ellsworth what he feels was important and impactful, especially in this first year.
Yeah.
But my concerns were, is this a process that is repeatable enough that it will be relevant after the first year? And is it consistent enough that we can, A, watch his growth or whoever's growth as a leader,
Yes.
but also have an ability to do comparative year-over-year work?
Yeah. So my answer, and I'd written it down, but my answer is yes. It is very repeatable, and in fact, the more we repeat it, the more productive it should become, because we can actually build off of previous ones. And this is also like transformative for participants as well, and that's like a piece that I think is rather unique for evaluations, because the participant too gets a deeper insight into the institution, into the work we want to do, and so if we repeat it in the same group, there's value in that, and then if new people come in, there's value in that because it's different insights. So that's a strength of this process. And I can say that with confidence because, you know, I have been in the same group for 2 years, and it is like very repeatable. Every time it's just, and now that we have more relationship, it's just improved, only improved.
For a facilitator, would you feel like that needed to be an outside person, or would that be somebody on the board?
We talked about this a little bit, and like the more I thought about it, I'm absolutely certain that it needs to be an outside person. for many reasons. And a good facilitator will be invisible, like you won't necessarily, it won't feel like they are doing a lot necessarily, right? Because they're not sitting there talking to you. But a good facilitator will protect the space that will allow us to communicate in the best way possible. So I do very much recommend that.
Do you feel comfortable having a third-party facilitator on your evaluation?
I do.
Could I hear from you and Billy, like how this would look from a staff perspective? Like, how do you feel about it? How would it be? Yeah, I'll just start there, I guess.
Yeah, I think an important piece of context is I am an at-will employee. I am not a contractual employee. The board can dismiss me for a reason or not really at any point. So this isn't a case where you'd need long-term evidence of something to make a decision. I was eager to explore options of evaluation that are not numeric based. I think what I can respond to that, and that's been the majority of the evaluations in my professional career. But I can tell you what I do is I use those numbers to create a narrative for myself, because the numbers, I understand that they represent people's opinions, but it's not meaningful. I don't feel a connection to that. We talked about that when Mika brought this idea back to the committee meeting. I feel like it sort of exceeded my hopes of how much of a interactive process it could be, and it feels very iterative, like I could see real growth happening year over year. My hope with Virginia or future board presidents would be, if there's corrective action needed, that wouldn't be held to an evaluation. So I think that if we all agree to that if there was a probable need correcting or something like that along the way, I think that takes some pressure off the evaluation process. I think that if we tried this and it felt like, all right, these 4 parts worked, these 2 parts we feel like did not add to the process, I think that we could have those conversations. But I feel comfortable with it. I think it would be exciting. When I spoke with other directors trying to find examples of non-traditional evaluations, I would say easily 98% of the people I talked to said, if you figure out a way to do this without numbers, will you please email me back? So I do think that this would be something to try, and if it worked, to talk about. I do think that there's a creative nature to being a library director that this would amplify, where I think traditional evaluations sort of ignore that and want to look at it through the lens of, well, you got a 2 last year, so if you got a 2.25 this year, what does that really mean? And that's not to minimize the value in traditional reviews. I think that some people really respond to those. I think that this would be unique to try.
Bill, you have?
I have all sorts of thoughts,
Okay.
but I'll try to keep them short. I am of the school of thinking I want a modern, human-centered approach to providing feedback to staff, including the executive director. I have been wanting a more meaningful process for years for our executive director, thinking that that's what's needed. And this goes well beyond that, and I think I'm very excited about the potential for this. So when we talk about this at the governance committee meeting, I think my main concern was, and I think it's been addressed here, bringing in a facilitator, at least for the first time, if not, because it's not a traditional process, and I think we need some help getting through it, and maintaining the boundaries in the process. And then another thought that came up when Ellsworth was talking for me is, I think this also helped separate the conversation of the evaluation is for, feedback and improving performance, separate from what the wage increase will be for the year. And so I think you have to think about how these two play together. I actually would say to keep them separate, evaluate those two separately. There's other ways we can look at how compensation should be determined. So I don't want to speak for you when it comes to compensation.
When I read this the first time, one of the thoughts I had was, some people love doing evaluations. I think that is true, that some people love them. I think for lots of people, they do cause some discomfort, whether that's in discerning, was this a 1 performance, was it a 2 performance? I want to give a 1.5, but I can't because it's not an option. And I think that this process would also have discomfort in it, whether that's because people are used to a traditional way or because it requires some vulnerability. But to me, the difference is this system feels like it's harnessing discomfort to move the process forward, where with other systems, it feels like the discomfort is just baked in and doesn't actually lead you anywhere. So I don't want to minimize that. I do think that this would require different thinking. This would require some vulnerability on everybody's part, and especially in the first round or 2 rounds, I think it may feel less comfortable for some people. But to me, I think that pushing through that would be worth it to see what the gains could be. Speaking directly to Billy's last point, I like the idea of separating. I think the idea of merit-based pay increases is a complicated topic that we don't need to dive into right now. I see value in executive director compensation changes mirroring that of the staff experience. So I think I would be very comfortable with a conversation around taking the average or the mode or whatever, however we wanted to frame that, sort of as a nod to this is work that we do together, and any compensation changes that we're making to the staff feel relevant. But that is decidedly in your purview, per the bylaws. So that's my thought, but I don't have a vote in that part of the process.
Thank you both. And then one other question was just like, what would would there be a report after that we do share out externally, or would it be like a narrative write-up on these 4 sections or something?
So, yeah, Virginia asked this question, and it will, during the process, notes will be taken, and then if we want, we could have just write it up as a report. And what I wrote back, it says that it should be relatively short, the report should be relatively short, written in plain language and descriptive, so that it's extremely accessible to anyone who reads it, even to people who are not involved in the process.
And then we would also have something representing Ellsworth's contribution as well, so notes or presentation or whatever to go along with that.
Right, so yeah, so whatever Ellsworth produces, and then the sort of the summary or report of the process that happened.
What is your idea on the cadence for this? I know traditionally we've done once a year, but then if somebody doesn't get hired in January.
Yeah.
I'm also hearing that this process maybe gets more useful the more often we go through it.
Sure.
Does that mean? No, I mean,
Every month.
Is there merit to, in the first year, doing this, at 6 months and at 1 year, but what is the cadence you're thinking about?
Well, I mean, I think I was just thinking, well, first let's try it once, see how we like it. And then even at the end of that first iteration, we might feel like, oh, we want to revisit, because these things came up. We want, and Ellsworth might say oh, I want to go out and do something. I want to bring it back, like art.
Okay.
So that might happen. Yeah, I think often is never a problem, obviously it's a problem in terms of like how much time and facilitator fee, you know, those things, but there's,
What is the traditional schedule then? Like, where are we at right now in terms of?
I think most times we've tried to do it in like January, February. It doesn't I think it would be nice to try to align it with whatever ENPS we get so that we can, I mean, before I was thinking about this as, I hate to say a numbers game, but a numbers game, and I was like, well, I wanna know what the ENPS is before we sit down and like write down our own numbers, like that might be a little bit less important this time around to like coordinate it with the other things that are happening in HR from that standpoint. But I think the one, and to your question,
Are you talking about electromagnetic pulses
Yeah, I
or
was wondering.
electromagnetic?
I'm sorry.
System?
the the Employee Net Promoter Score. Sorry.
Thank you.
Not
I
talking
didn't
about
think it was
electronics.
electromagnetic mechanical positions, but you never know.
So we'll be making evaluation without that information?
I
So
think,
there's no metrics at all?
Well, we have it, it's just maybe not as up to date.
yeah, it would be how recent it was, but things go out quarterly, so we're gonna have something. I think the one thing I would say as far as scheduling is I would not want this format of evaluation to be part of a regular board meeting. I
oh,
feel
no,
like that's
yes.
a
Yeah.
lot.
And I had also responded to that too, and I know we had talked about, you know, you said you were comfortable, but I'm like, I think it must be, because an evaluation can be closed session, I think. It must be closed session, and what happens there stays there.
Yeah, I think that'll be easier for the staff as well, there's not all the in session, out of session, closed session, is whatever,
Yeah.
like, we can have a dedicated time, we can have a dedicated time if we're getting a facilitator, it's not gonna be, the meeting goes,
Yeah.
you know, and then we have sort of some wibbly wobbly time that we think we're gonna start the evaluation, I think just dedicating a special session would be.
To that point about the closed session and all that, the facilitator, like, how does that fit into HR and privacy and
For closed session, anyone attending.
no, the closed session, the having a external facilitator who's not.
Like, do they need to sign an NDA or something?
Is what,
I don't.
Billy says no.
Well, I mean, I
We've
know
agreed
that,
to it, I
like,
mean, yeah.
yeah, we could certainly look into this, but you can invite anyone into your closed session that is relevant to the conversation, that makes sense. It's just, you're saying that it's closed to the board and whoever's providing that information are part of the discussion.
but in terms of doing an evaluation of the executive director having somebody from the outside, is there any problem with that? And are there any constraints on who that facilitator is? Are there people who do this on a regular basis? I'm just,
Well, I do have a facilitator to
I would start out
recommend.
by saying that
Is that
as
the
the
question?
person who was opposed to the whole numbers thing, I'm thrilled with this. I was the one who was always like, no, I need a narrative, I can't do the numbers thing for something like this, I had to translate, just like you're saying. So I'm all over this, I love the idea, I'm just trying to then think about those
So there's no conflict,
logistics.
if the board wants to move forward with this, that we could then, you know, if there's, like, we could say, like, given this process, are there any concerns of going to closed session for this process? And including a facilitator, we could ask that question of an attorney.
I think we could specifically ask, so what if there's conversation that I'd like to have that involves naming individuals? So if I wanna talk about, okay, so we hired the staff, this is how, you know, those details would be the only thing that I could imagine needing sort of counsel on.
In terms of having an external person.
Yeah, and I think that the landscape could change if the board was imagining the conclusion being a termination, that may have different HR questions. So I think that just dealing sort of situationally with, if there's a different expected outcome, if we're going into this thinking either there will be deep conversation about specific staff members, or there could be termination action, things like that, I think that would probably warrant a separate conversation between you and Billy, or me and Billy, depending on which issue we're talking about. But I think that there would probably be that kind of conversation even in a different review scenario going on anyway. So I think that there'd be these different things coming together.
And I would like you to feel free to talk about, I mean, we just talked about like our staff is just not that big. Like, I would like you to feel free to talk about specific interactions and specific programs you've been to and who you worked with. Like I want you to have that kind of freedom to like tell us the narrative and draw the picture of what you've been doing. So if that's something that we need to take into account when we're finding a facilitator, or if we have to figure out how to do this without a facilitator, I want you to have as much freedom to speak as possible without feeling like a third party is precluding you from being as open and genuine as you would like to be in the evaluation, because that seems to be the vulnerability and cooperation seems to be the entire crux of this process working. And I understand a facilitator holding space and keeping the process moving and keeping us, you know, narrowly confined in it. But if that person is also going to preclude us from being vulnerable and genuine, then I would rather we figure out, you know, somebody here being a facilitator.
That's true. So if we can have a facilitator, I 100%, 1,000 times would recommend having a facilitator. If that is gonna preclude it, then I can facilitate. I don't find that to be ideal, but like, of the two, yes, I would also prioritize being able to be free and open.
I would agree, and I would say to do that, you'd probably require finding a facilitator that no one here is actually already in relationship with, of any kind, you know what I mean? Like someone who's sort of like truly neutral would probably be important.
But they still may have to like sign something or that.
Yeah, I think if they sign something.
And I guess I'm trying to think through what would be like an extreme example of where we feel held back because there's a facilitator. And it may just take practice to figure out where those pieces would be. But I don't feel uncomfortable with a facilitator. I think we could probably do, I don't think it would be an NDA, but something like
Yeah,
that
and
kind of protects. And it's,
facilitators have confidential, you know, like, that's not a,
They would be signing some sort of contract.
yes, I don't really see it as a problem.
I'm not concerned either.
And I agree, like, a facilitator would be so good. Cause you can't be neutral, you can't change your hats while facilitating and be like, now I'm speaking from trustee perspective, like that
Oh, no,
would
yeah, no, I
really
wouldn't, then I
hurt
would
you.
not be able to participate.
And that
Right,
would
yeah,
not
That's
be
not
fair.
a position to put you in.
Yeah.
Billy, do we have facilitator options that would be?
I have a facilitator.
Because I'm
Yeah.
not aware of any.
Just because this is so specific, I do have a facilitator I recommend, and so if we wanted to go forward, I would connect you guys, and then whatever that happens, you know, like see if that works for you.
What would be your proposed timeline then for doing this? Because now we don't.
Ellsworth celebrates 6 months in 10 days,
Ooh, that go.
right?
that means everybody here, all the new trustees do too.
Oh my gosh.
That's true, we started on the same day.
That's true, we did.
So,
I mean, so Ellsworth needs enough time to be able to prepare a presentation that he feels very confident in, because that is core. And then, you know, whatever time it takes to like coordinate with the facilitator, I think that's it. We don't really need to do anything except know what we want of, you know, like if there's something specific, so that we can tell Ellsworth, like, please address this.
So maybe like February?
I was gonna say, do we feel like we can
I feel like
think
February's
through
a good
December and January, if there's anything outside of this outline that's put together, if there's any other instructions that we want to give Ellsworth, and then
And then a
governance.
facilitator should probably meet at least with the governance board
Mhm.
and then with Ellsworth. So when she meets with Ellsworth, she would just go over the process, and also she'd probably meet with us first and like whatever expectation the board has, and then any questions that Ellsworth has.
One thing we had talked about when we were doing the search process and the interview process was that the evaluation process would mirror the job description.
Yeah, so that's in here too. So
Okay.
that could,
That's the list at the
that's
end.
the list at the end here.
Yeah,
Oh,
so it
That's
does
interesting.
mirror, it does mirror what was in the job description, just in a more narrative way,
Right.
less numerical.
you know me, that's all mine. My jam.
So I just want to say that I think it's amazing that this group seems to be willing to embrace some
Yeah.
experimentation and change and like trying something new. It takes me back, my question is sort of, it takes me back to like, what are the two purposes of evaluation that I see? And one is that like, we all agree that accountability is important, right? That's a value of ours. And so I want to know, do we think that this meets that standard of, making sure that we're doing our job to ensure accountability and oversight, right? That, because that is our reason for being here, one of them, right? And the second, that this enables the person who's being evaluated, in this case Ellsworth, gives you sort of feedback and direction and allows you to be able to create a record, right, of your work and to sort of be able to showcase your work over time. So I just want to know, like, do we all feel? My answer to that is like, yes, I think this is amazing. that you've brought this in. So I just want to know that like everyone else also feels that way.
I mean, I thought about that a little bit, because I was like, well, Ellsworth aside, we're letting this person bring their A game to us with very little question and and I think that goes back to like the idea of evaluations being a little bit punitive. But I think because we have specific things that we are asking Ellsworth to tell us, if there are things that we find are missing or we find he's not spoken to, we can ask about those. There's the section on, asking questions with neutrality. We can ask. Maybe that just was not the thing he was most proud of. And so it didn't make the cut into the presentation. Or maybe it's a concern that we've heard out in the community. I think there's still the ability, but that's part of where I think we need time to look over this list and say, after Ellsworth does his presentation, if I haven't heard this, or this, what are the questions that I'm asking, or what are the things that I'm chasing down to make sure that we are holding him accountable?
Well, because then step 4 is like, we could say like, Ellsworth, I asked you this question, or I asked, and this is the answer, I'm not satisfied. Like, I could say that, we could say that with consent. And then we could say, so what should we do? Like, maybe that is like, we'll come back in 3 months on that, or,
So just
Having been through a search process with Ellsworth, I feel really confident in this process, because the open-ended parts that were involved in that were met with enthusiasm and like above and beyond, kind of, I guess.
That's how I felt. I felt we're in a lucky place. Like we have an executive director that we do feel very like all happy and confident with. We have a very functional board that, that is collaborative. And so I feel like we have lots of collaborative energy here. And so I feel very confident, as you say. I feel confident that this is a good place to try this out.
And I'd like us to feel confident about it before we hand it off to another board or another ED, or like down the road. Hopefully this becomes the process that is used in the future, and as people change seats, I would like us to feel solid enough about this that we make a good path for.
Well, and even though it's very structured, there are expectations of conversations and questions, and I think that it's evaluative, but it also has progress, right? It also gives you something forward, because evaluations don't have to be and shouldn't always just be punitive. They should be about, this is, and nobody is strong on everything, right? And so it is focusing on the things that they are strong with, but it's also focusing on things that, maybe we wanna see improvement or changes in. And I feel like this is a positive, progressive way to do that.
I mean, my personal opinion is that this provides an opportunity for superior accountability than other models, so I'm already sold on that. Like, it's not, I'm not asking from a place of like concern, quite the opposite. I actually think that this will lead to superior accountability. I would be proud to go to the community and say, this is how we ensure oversight.
Agreed. I'm excited about it. And I was so happy to hear from you both too, and hear that other libraries are interested in like kind of exploring this too. It makes me think about conference presentations, like if the board were.
Oh, yes.
Did that come up
Oh, yes,
already?
Ellsworth already brought that up. He's putting us on stage to have
The other thing is like when Ellsworth asks question to us, like he doesn't have to bring his A game, you know, like,
Yeah.
and it's like, it's okay to be like, this is where I'm struggling, I would like feedback on.
Yeah.
So like, that's.
And that ties into my second question, which was for you, Ellsworth, that like, does it do the things that it's also intended for? Because my point is that it's not only, it's partly about accountability. For me, that box is beyond checked. But it's also for you. So my question is like, does it do the things that you need out of an evaluation, is my question.
I think so, yeah, I think it would.
We just needed to hear that.
I also feel comfortable asking for those things
Okay.
outside of the evaluation process along the way, so I think those two pieces together make me feel like that would not be a gap.
Awesome. And then my other question was, so is this a 6-month evaluation, or is this we do this, okay.
That was kind of the question you
Yeah,
had.
I feel like if I know you're already working on some sort of 6-month benchmark type things. I think that's a good way to look at it. I'm not saying like if something happens in the 7th month, he doesn't add it to his evaluation. But given that we're not meeting in December, January will probably be when we sit down and, you know, formalize this a little bit more, at least for the community, like putting something out that the community will see in the board packet. Then having this in February, probably before the February board meeting, and that would be the other thing that I would want the governance committee to sort of look at, what day in February, what
We would do
time
this, yeah.
we could do this. So after the January regular board meeting, but before the February regular board meeting, at a special session that we would do in a closed session, that would just be dedicated to the evaluation. So that would require coordination with Ellsworth, the facilitator,
us.
the 7 of us. I think that would be it, and building accessibility.
Right. And then I would plan, it's about like a 2-hour process.
Yeah, okay. That's delightful.
Yeah, I saw there, she said it was, you know, low lift, high yield. That's what kind of sold me too. And Mika said that, so, thank you, Mika.
I was so happy that you were sold. I'm like, oh, Megan, if you're sold. You know,
I am the
you know,
most
like,
rigid
cause I
one.
could be like,
It's absolutely true, so yes, I'm the most rigid in this group, so.
No, it's like, so it's
okay.
because you ask questions and it's like, but they're important, so it's like, it was really nice to be able to work like that, where I'm like, oh, look at this, you know. And then you're like, but what about these things? And then to be able to come to a place where you felt comfortable,
Yes.
like really was meaningful for me too, so.
Well, thank you for putting the work into it, appreciate it.
Do you guys feel comfortable with what we've set out as far as a timeline?
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so.
What to bring back to the board?
Yeah.
Ellsworth, do you feel comfortable with that as well?
Yeah, I think I may share sort of 6-month action steps prior.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's fine.
and then we can see how those fit together.
Okay, no, that's, I know that's separate, that's perfectly fine. When would you like the, I guess, detailed list or layout of what our expectations are? I'm guessing it's not gonna change very much from the 4 sort of main bullet points that you had.
And or it might just be specific, like we might have specific questions.
No, I mean for him to prepare his,
Oh, yeah.
like when, are we comfortable with what is here, or do we wanna make any adjustments to this before we hand it off to Ellsworth for him to be able to put together his portion? I'd like to give him as much
Yeah.
lead time as possible.
Well, I think it's okay.
Okay, I felt comfortable with it because it mirrors, like we
The job
said, the job description.
Yeah.
And
Which was, I
it's
think,
like flexibility and start wherever he wants to start, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I don't think like he doesn't have to answer every bullet point,
No,
just
no,
like
no.
this.
It would be a
This round.
5-hour
Yeah.
presentation.
No,
Yeah.
15 to 20 minutes.
Okay. Then Ellsworth, I think we're comfortable with you starting with that as sort of your guideposts for what you're putting together for the presentation. And then the governance committee will work on securing a facilitator and finding a date. And then working with staff to get that on the calendar and get the agenda and get space.
My only final question is just wanting to understand, and this is a governance committee question maybe, or bylaws. What are the requirements for your evaluation, or do we have a policy around that? So it truly is at our discretion.
I think that it's
That's our discretion,
completely at our
and we actually also asked Billy about whether
Yeah.
there was documentation, like we need
Yeah.
certain kind of documentation, and he was comfortable
Oh,
with.
no, that's kind of fascinating, but okay, that's great.
All right, well, thank you so much, guys, for your.
Thank you,
help
Mika,
and
for-
enlightening us.
Yes, thank you, Nika, this is wonderful. Advocacy committee, do you have an update?
I'm hoping that we can do this quickly.
Okay.
My notes. Okay, so we had our first advocacy committee meeting yesterday. And I'm really pleased to share that, we have constituted that committee. Being as it is a new kind of committee that is a little bit less definable, like easily sort of bounded discreetly around finance or governance. I think it's taken some time to kind of shape what this would be. Here is an initial iteration of this committee, and it may change. So it also is flexible. So the first thing, I'm going to sort of walk through the agenda and tell you a little bit about what we discussed yesterday. And there will be one item that will be sort of an ongoing possible, talking about a possible action item. So I introduced the advocacy committee as I sort of proposed it. Its purpose, so we have sort of a fixed area of work, as well as I mentioned some flexibility to be responsive to things that may arise. And so that purpose of this committee is to identify, respond to, and facilitate our board's efforts to support and advocate for our library's mission of being a library for everyone, proactively stewarding public trust and belonging without othering at our library, and advocate for resilient local democratic public institutions and governance through both internal efforts and external efforts. And so that's kind of like an overview of what the purpose of the committee is. It's a big container. So there are some things that it is not. It is not meant to be everything, right? So it is not to subsume the roles that we all share and are sort of like general responsibilities. So we'll be sort of paying ongoing attention to that boundedness of scope. But generally we'll be doing things like monitoring the landscape, to think about how that might interact with our library, to inform our board actions and policies, to consider opportunities that may arise around advocacy. So this could be things like recommending and supporting board level advocacy, like letters, public statements, actions, resolutions, or activities. As opportunities or needs arise that are relevant to our library, to the community that we serve as a library, and to our role as a democratic public institution in our community. Community engagement is another, so actually a little bit more on advocacy. This also may include advocacy selectively for our library, for things like library funding, we're pretty engaged in that, protection of intellectual freedom, and public libraries more generally at local and national levels. A third kind of area of possible work or scope activities could include community engagement, things like building relationships with local stakeholders and allies, with other governmental bodies, local community organizations, and other library boards and neighboring communities, and helping to foster intergovernmental collaboration and communication through support to iGov. So again, there is a boundary to draw between the advocacy committee and iGov that we will sort of be in communication and conversation around to make sure that we are, supporting iGov's functions, which exceed the advocacy committee's functions. And finally, efforts to support the internal organization of OPPL. Things like providing input and support to the library director's efforts to promote well-being and positive organizational culture, and to champion the efforts that our director and staff are already doing in the library to the larger community. Big part of this, right, is advocating for the library in the community. So it's not to say that we'll be doing all of those things all the time, but these are things that the advocacy committee could take on. I'm chairing the committee. Christina is a regular member of the committee. Suzanne, I believe, are you joining as a regular member of the committee, which is helpful that Suzanne is within the board leadership, so there can helps with communication. And as all our committees are, this is open to everyone, so please join us if you can. We are attentive to thinking about holding these meetings at an accessible time, knowing that many of our evenings our meetings are at evening times. We may try to do this one during the day, but that is sort of, we'll see how that goes. We will have meetings at a minimum quarterly and or as needed, so just at a minimum, we want to meet quarterly, but we may do so more often. And that is this sort of presentation of the advocacy committee, so that is what we'll be doing. I'm gonna move on. I'm gonna actually talk about the third and fourth agenda items that we talked about at the advocacy committee. That was a little bit longer because it was like introducing the committee. So I wanted to sort of give that longer overview. The third and fourth agenda items at our advocacy committee meeting yesterday were talking about the possibility of exploring or possible adoption or just learning from the framework of belonging without othering as proposed by the Othering and Belonging Institute. This comes from a conversation at the board strategic retreat and our review of the core pillars of our work that we had. And Christina originally proposed that, and it's something that I supported. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna curate some opportunities for learning to explore what these frameworks are, how they might be helpful to us, and if and how there may be aspects of them that we wanna incorporate into our own structures and approaches or processes. So to begin that process, I sent out a list of links. I invite you over the next, over the holiday period, basically the winter break kind of period, to peruse them. We had an initial discussion. We will return to discussing how we might want to learn from these frameworks, recognizing that this is a process that will unfold over time. And that is as far as we got. And then we had to table the fourth agenda item, which was talking about a board training schedule, which is something that we'll come back to and revisit. The second, and I saved it to the end because it's the more actionable item that we discussed, is a proposed resolution regarding the use of library property for civil immigration enforcement purposes. So I'm going to pass these out. Thank you so much, Ellsworth, for printing them and having me. Let's see. I feel like I'm in classic. Did you exam? Oh, actually, I need one. Oh, okay. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to start with goals. I'm going to talk a little bit about the process, and then we'll talk about the content of this resolution. So the goals of this resolution arose in response to the surge of federal immigration enforcement activities in our region, which are not compatible with our values and mission as a library for everyone. And the derivative concerns that we have, right, around concern for the safety and well-being of our patrons and our staff, as well as the need to give our director the authority that he needs to respond to the situation, to affirm our support and intentions to our community in responding to staff concerns around this issue. The importance that we hold our educational role in the community of providing access to accurate information in times like these and as always. ensuring that we understand the legal requirements that we're subject to that might at times both limit us as well as provide us with legal grounds to do things like control our property, for example. And finally, aligning ourselves with other governmental bodies in Oak Park and in the region. So examples of others who have taken action similar to the one that we're proposing here include the Galewood Library, whose stuff we reviewed, the Oak Park Township and Village, other municipalities like Skokie and Evanston, and including counties, including our own, Cook, Lake, and other counties. So those are the many goals that we're trying to accomplish by proposing this resolution. Let me tell you a little bit of the process. We started by reviewing other policies that sought to meet these goals. We held a discussion with our lawyer and solicited a draft resolution that met these goals. We reviewed and revised slightly this resolution in our advocacy committee yesterday, which included Ellsworth, Mika, Suzanne, Christina, and I. And we're presenting this recommended resolution, sorry, what?
And Susie.
And Susie, thank you. And we're presenting this recommended resolution here tonight to answer questions about it. And then in terms of the next step in the process, we will, since we do not have a December board meeting, and I think this is more urgent than a December board meeting, but we do not have the ability to take a vote as an action item in this agenda, that we consider the possibility of reconvening as soon as we're able to for the very brief 7-minute purpose of taking a vote. But we could talk a little bit about what is required for that process, which Ellsworth looked into and I appreciate. So here, I'm going to move on to the content. So this focuses largely on asserting our legal right to control our public parking garage in particular, and prohibit it from being used as a staging area or operation space for federal agents for the purposes of immigration enforcement. It reaffirms and encourages the work that the library has already been doing at making space and information available to the community that responds to this moment, to understand their rights, etc., and to voice their support for the procedures and policies that the library director has already developed with staff to provide that staff with support, resources, and direction for responding to federal agents' presence or potential presence in the library, and to adding and revising those as needed. So those are already exist. This resolution affirms that and sort of gives support to Ellsworth to develop some of those procedures further. And it clarifies that we can control private areas in the library, including things like private meeting spaces and staff spaces. So we got a lot of clarity from our lawyer about that. We can answer questions about that. And that is in the resolution accordingly. And that we understand that we have to adhere to applicable laws regarding things like respecting judicial warrants. So in terms of process, shall we read the resolution and then we can answer questions and sort of open for discussion, or should we open for discussion and then read the resolution, or should we all just read the resolution on their own?
I think everyone can read it on their own, if we've got questions.
One quick correction, it's the Galewood and Library that's in Elgin, not the Galewood.
Thank you.
Just,
Yeah.
I had that confusion the first time I heard it, because it was referred to as Galewood, and I'm like, what?
Is it on?
No, it's not on here.
It's just
No,
another
just what you
example of the
mentioned.
library, she said that she misspoke, that in the library.
When you say the signage, like this description, this is more, this wouldn't literally be on the signage, like the, it would literally be on the
Yeah.
sign.
And the nice thing about this is we got this straight from our lawyer, so,
So it's gonna, no, I'm just trying to envision the sign, so there'll be a sign somewhere that says this whole sentence on the parking garage, got it.
that's right, yeah.
And you said you spoke to the lawyers about space What was that, Lisa? I'm
Yeah.
just interested in more.
So the library is a public space, and we had a long conversation about how this is a distinct public space than other governmental properties, right? In the township, it doesn't have a lot of people coming into it, even the village, you have to buzz to get in, or, you know, it's
Right,
not.
it's completely open,
It's,
yeah.
yeah, and the park district also, but it's a bit different, but we have 1,000 patrons a day, right, coming in and out of the library. It is the most public space of the public spaces.
As it should be.
As it should be, yeah, that's why we're all here. But that like is not as straightforward as
Right.
this is for some of the other governmental bodies. So we had an extensive discussion to learn about what that meant for us, and determined our understanding from our lawyers that private space, so the public library is a public space. That does include the parking garage. That includes spaces that are generally understood to be sort of public spaces where anyone can kind of come in and out during operational hours. That would not include spaces like staff spaces or meeting rooms that have been registered to a particular person
Okay.
for that duration of that time, because those are not generally understood as public, right? They're sort of private. So there is a distinction between public and private space. We are able to assert limitations on the use of our parking lot. We cannot necessarily say that guys cannot come into the library. And if they have a judicial warrant, you know, we're, you know, this is where the sort of
Yeah.
stickiness area,
Yes.
you know, comes in. And, you know, we want to balance our obligations to follow the law and our moral obligations and obligations to our staff and our patrons to create a safe environment. And so we think that we strike this balance with this resolution. I hope that answered your questions around.
It did, why, this is just curiosity, why why they felt the parking lot could be distinguished. Not that I disagree, I'm just curious.
The reason that we're focused on the parking garage is that this is really the only space within our sort of library properties that could really reasonably be used as a staging area.
Okay.
Or an operation space, and that is the activity that is within our ability to limit. And so
Okay,
that's
so it's
what
the
we're-
activity more than the space we're focusing on.
It's, the attorney brought up the parking garage in and of himself, saying that is a space that's distinct and that is not typically a space that would be used for First Amendment.
Okay.
Right, it's not
Okay.
like, you know, somebody's we're saying you can't be on the sidewalk in front of the building protesting. It's a space that's used for parking and getting into the library,
Okay,
and only for that. And that's what its purpose is, but that, and so it's a space that we can limit,
okay.
and that is more private and not a public space.
And there's significant nuance to what meeting spaces could be considered a restricted space, what can't be. Study rooms feel like the next best example of a space that we could say distinctively, this is not open to the public because you register, you use the space. If another patron came in uninvited, that would be a problem.
Right.
Most of our meeting room use is open to the public. So it would be very difficult to write a document that includes all of that nuance, where the parking garage is a little bit more straightforward.
Thank you.
This is so difficult because of exactly what you said. We are by nature a very open, very public, very accessible building. All three of the buildings. So that makes this a much different conversation than what the other governing bodies might be having.
And that's core to our mission.
Core mission,
Yeah.
exactly. That makes sense.
Walking the tightrope to make sure we don't paint ourselves into a corner to take away First Amendment rights down the road when, again, we're not the people sitting in these seats.
Exactly.
I do feel grateful to have clarity and the ability to provide transparency to our community, which is something that I appreciate that Ellsworth has raised, right? It's really important for us to be able to be clear about what we can and cannot do. And so I think that I appreciate that we have the opportunity to get that clarity.
I definitely appreciate that you all took the time to do this, because the last thing I want to do is promise the community something that we cannot uphold. I don't want to tell the community that we have given them protections here that we can't honor. So thank you very much for all of you doing the due diligence on this and getting all of that information and getting it all sorted out with Insolbank.
And as I said, I think that we're doing everything here that we can do. And that was definitely the spirit behind this, including, supporting and protecting library staff as well as patrons. So I think the advocacy committee endorses and recommends this. It's been through a process of review, both in the advocacy committee as well as from our lawyer, as well as with Ellsworth. And so if we can certainly answer more questions, we can also discuss what it would look like to move forward if we wanted to put this to a vote to adopt.
So moving this forward would just be a special session.
Yes, so we would need at least a quorum of 4, for in-person trustees. If there are extenuating circumstances and a trustee who can't be here in person wants to participate, they could vote remotely, is my understanding. Ellsworth did the legwork of determining this, and so what we could do, with my understanding, and Ellsworth will correct me, is see if there's a time as soon as we could all get at least 4 of us, if not all of us, ideally, get ourselves together for an announced special meeting in which the only agenda item is this one action item.
And so we need minimum of 48 hours of public
That's so
agenda.
long, yeah.
We could reasonably have an agenda published, I would say by 10:30 tomorrow morning. So I think anytime after 10:30 on Friday, we could have a special meeting. And just to elaborate a little bit on the in-person versus remote participation, we need physical quorum. So we need 4 people in the room. At that point, a quorum can vote to allow remote participation because the board has adopted that previously, evidenced by the remote participation policy. So if somebody wants to attend remotely because of the stated reasons, and those reasons are illness or disability, employment purposes, family or other emergency, unexpected childcare obligations, then the in-person quorum can vote to allow that remote participation. Once that's done, then everyone on site and remote has the ability to vote on the issue. That's kind of the parameters that I have. Again, I think we could set this meeting for any time after 10:30 on Friday.
How is that in terms of the other timing issues we discussed during the advocacy committee meeting, in terms of staff and
So I checked with Kamaya in communications, who is the person who usually does agenda publication, and she's here tomorrow. I believe she's also here Friday. So if we pick a date today, we can get that prepped probably tomorrow morning anyway, while it's fresh in our minds, and then she will publish it at the appropriate time, depending on when the meeting is set.
And you'll have an opportunity to communicate with staff about this.
So we have an all-staff meeting 8:30 tomorrow morning. We always have that following the board meeting, and I think that this could be communicated to staff who participate in that, and we also could follow up with updated guidelines for staff through our regular messaging on Friday.
But you're comfortable with that?
I am. I think I would like to hear if the board has thoughts about how this would be communicated to the public, if it would be communicated. I think we could make it work publishing. I think we would make it work if it was voted on Friday early in the day. I'm less comfortable with the idea of an approval midday or later, because if there were press inquiries or there was community feedback immediately, I'd like that to be done while administrative staff is in the building. My recommendation would be to implement this as if it were policy where we don't do specific press release or other pieces like that, but I serve the board, and if the board has a different vision, we can do that.
I agree.
Yeah, it was on the same page as I. Maybe it would just be less stressful and easier to do it on Monday. Just, I mean, I'm keen to get into it as soon as possible, right, but,
I'm free on Mondays, but it's still.
I think after the,
You do 4 votes.
after the weekends.
What time?
What, yeah, what time?
I mean, I like during the day, y'all, but,
Days.
my Mondays are complicated because I'm on point for child, I could bring children, kids.
I was gonna say, I will be
I'd
bringing
probably
mine
bring-
most likely,
Yeah,
so.
actually, so yeah, never mind, it's
Do
not
they
like a
not
long
have
meeting,
school?
it's a 7 thing
Is there no school?
No, there is school, but I'm just saying if it's gonna be,
in the evening.
My kids aren't in school because they're off the whole week for Thanksgiving. Well, childcare,
This is gonna be the best meeting ever.
We'll actually be taking it in the children's section.
I might bring one.
I'll actually do it. I have an 11 a.m. teacher conference, but otherwise I am open.
So this was me thinking that in the evening.
Oh.
I was
I was gonna
thinking I couldn't do it, but that would be if it was a normal meeting, I couldn't do it. But if a 7-minute meeting and one agenda item, that our children are very, very welcome. Like,
Yes.
we're really welcome
I'd
to
still
attend.
prefer during the day, but
You can do it during the day, Colin can do it, I can do it during the day.
I can do during the day.
It depends on what time.
What time is for you?
Like afternoon, later afternoon is one time I can do it.
Could we
I was
do
gonna say, I won't be able to do during the day on Monday.
4:30? No, you can't then.
Do you,
What time is the earliest that you could do it?
I will have to check my work calendar, cause I mean, I spend my day talking to people all day and I can't.
Oh, that sounds like a work thing you can't get out of, which is on the list.
It's true. No, I know, so I mean, I would be participating
Do we have
remotely
four
if
people
I
that would-
needed to.
Yeah, I could be remote.
okay, because like,
Yeah, I can
Colin,
show
me,
up in person.
I can.
It could be in person.
Yeah,
And
as
then
long
I
as
would
you
be
have
okay,
one
cause I
to
know this
two.
has to get signed, or am I okay to come by
1 to
later in the
2.
day to sign it?
works for you?
No, I'm not.
No, oh, doesn't
I
work.
can't, I have meetings in the
So can
morning.
we
I have
do,
lunch- I
like,
can do it
morning?
in the afternoon, late afternoon.
Yeah, can we do 4:30?
I can't, well, then I can't do it.
Oh, okay.
Are you serious?
You want to the beginning of the day on Monday as well?
Beginning of the day, Monday would be great.
Better to
I
have it that
think
earlier makes
If
sense.
it's Monday, I have less concern
Yeah,
with that.
we'll be there too soon.
Can we just do like 8:15 in the morning on Monday?
Or 9?
Get
That's
it done.
8:15 sounds fine.
I can't do
That's
that.
early.
I gotta send my kids to school. And
Yeah,
then
you
it's
can.
still parenting, so,
What time do your kids go to school?
at 8:30 I can be free, maybe even, I could drop off my middle schooler and come here around 8:30.
So we're not open till 9, but if we do,
No, then we'll do, no,
No, if we're
we'll do
not,
9, we'll do 9.
but we could do it in the community
No,
space
no,
downstairs.
no,
Let's do 9.
I mean, we'll
Nine.
be here, it's just making
Nine
sure
sounds
that the
good.
public has access to
So
the
you'll be here, I'll be here, you'll be here.
I'll be here with the kids.
But
We have to
I'll be
be
here,
during public hours, don't we?
We could have the door open.
But nine,
It has to be
Nine,
more
nine,
easily
nine,
accessible,
nine,
but
nine,
nine.
nine,
It's
nine.
buildings and hours.
No, it's not that serious.
9's
Okay,
good.
so we can be here, so we'll be a quorum, and,
At 9?
and then you guys will, can you zoom in at 9?
I might be able to come in at 9.
I'm gonna check my
If
calendar.
it's
I
15
don't-
minutes for real, I can.
Are there meeting rooms where I can just take the rest of my day?
Yeah, well, maybe not. They actually go pretty fast.
Okay.
And Thanksgiving week might be.
Wishful
There
thinking.
is an
Can
office.
you use it, can you use it?
Okay, then I might be able to come in and then like take one meeting there and then I can
I can come in at 9.
drive home.
Yeah,
Um,
okay, great.
if it's 9 o'clock,
But everybody's here.
Yeah, less.
we'll make it work.
It'll take longer to wait in line for a latte afterwards.
All right, awesome, that was easy.
And that gives us time to think about preparing staff too, so that, I think that works out well.
Do you have any concerns with staff response?
I don't, I think we just need to be clear about what does it mean, so what happens if it's a Sunday afternoon and
Yeah.
and ICE does come in and ignores the sign and sets up a staging area. So I think mostly it's walking through that kind of stuff, which we can talk to legal counsel about and Rob in public safety and make sure that we just expand our guidelines to include this.
If you do present it tomorrow and like, I don't know, if you get a response that surprises you, can you just share that with us? Because I guess I'd wanna hear it before, Monday.
I can, and I did share that the board would be discussing this and gave an overview, I would say, in Billy and I do staff chats where we invite all staff in, and we talked about this through the lens of like, what is our organizational response in general? And there were no concerns raised. I mean, that was one group of staff in an agenda with many things on it. I think that this represents, in a way, it represents what we're all struggling with, which is ICE activity does not align with the library's values, missions, goals. We want to say you can't come in the building. We want to say we object to this completely. There are legal guidelines that we can't cross that. So it feels like this aligns with the struggle that we're having, which is, so what can we say no to? And even if it's not the thing that would be number one on our list, it's still meaningful. So I think what staff will see this as, the board is thinking about the same things we're thinking about. We're taking the actions where we can take the actions, and that's what we can do right now.
That's right. And just to say also that this resolution gives space for and reaffirms that Ellsworth Library leadership has procedures in place and will continue to refine those procedures in place. So it just gives space to that. It doesn't outline them in the resolution what those things, but I just wanted to say that like it was something that we thought about and explicitly referenced, supporting those procedures, development of those procedures.
And I will work with Matt Barter's in facilities to figure out what the signage changes might look like. We have some reoccurring issues with people ignoring the signage about the garage closing at night, and Matt having to drive in the middle of the night to let someone out of the garage. So
We could have done that the time that
we've been talking about updating that signage anyway, and those are the big red signs in very prominent locations, so there may be an opportunity to combine these two pieces into new signage. My guess is we will do something relatively temporary while we figure out the permanent and then move forward, but I think that we could get something up quickly and then something more intentional in the future.
Okay, well, in that case, what do we need to do formally to calendar that? We just decided we need to.
I think we just did.
Right, great.
We did all the doing, okay. Anything else, Annie?
No, that's it. We'll post it about upcoming meetings.
Additional reports, IGov.
Yeah, so I shared, one thing I definitely want to bring your attention to is the candidate, what is it called nowadays? It's the guide for folks that are interested in running for office. It's in pretty good shape right now, and so we're at the point where we are asking boards and accountants, people and EDs to look at it and just let us know if you see yourself in it. You can put comments, and you should be able to. If you can't, let me know, and I'll change the settings. I don't know, but I think it's in good shape. So let me know what you think about that, and then we are going to hopefully plan like a semi-annual forum for elected. So like really an internal conversation of like what's the support we all need in late winter. And so community engagement came up as a possible topic, and nothing else really has, so we're still talking. So if you all have ideas, let me know, because I think my questions are like, what is challenging, or like what's the sticking point with our jobs? What's something we like maybe have a knowledge gap on, and maybe what's something we just want to know more about. So think about that, get back to me if you have ideas, and then I think I'm just going to start sharing out my iGov updates over email, so I'm probably going to speak about it less in meetings. That's all.
COG did not meet this last month. Meeting is tabled until December the 3rd. Planet Green,
We'll meet after this meeting, so we'll report.
Friends,
Who doesn't need this?
Out with Purpose,
The gavel was fabulous.
Mhm.
We enjoyed ourselves. We did get that picture.
Yes, I'll send you this. Let me do it.
And
I keep talking about this picture that I know.
I spoke with Tim Thomas, who is on the board there, about how we can engage, and he suggested starting with going to board meetings. So I'll start going to their board meetings, and then we'll see where it
are
goes
those on
from
the
there.
4th Tuesday?
I don't know, it's not on the website, and I've reached out, I'll find out, but yeah, hopefully it's not.
It's probably on Wednesday.
That's right.
We'll just ask them to do it. Collaboration for early childhood.
They have an event Thursday that I'm gonna go to. Is anyone else? That's the
It's daytime, right?
breakfast. It's like 8:30, I think. There's 2 events, and I'm starting to do this with AGA too, where we're just trying to share out more collaborative events. So that's on Thursday at 8:30 at the 19th Century Club. And then in December, there's that West Suburban Council on Homelessness,
Oh, okay, yeah.
which is unrelated completely.
Did you say 8:30 or 9:30?
8:30 Thursday.
Any other updates?
I see a very exciting word next.
Yes. But before I get to that piece, I will say, because we are going to be off on our own for the next almost 2 months, please stay connected. I know we have to respect OMA, but please, if you're having committee meetings, if you have notes that come out of them, please make sure that you share them with Ellsworth, that you share them out to the board, that we don't respond back. I would still like for this to be a productive month. I think there's a lot that we want to do and we can get done that does not require the December meeting. And then just reach out if there's anything that you need, if you want help with anything, if we need to coordinate something, just so that we make sure when we jump back in January, we feel like we still have this really great momentum. Having concluded our agenda, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved again.
I hear a motion. I'm gonna take Christina as the second. Okay, all those in favor?
Hi.
All those opposed? Abstentions? All right, folks, see you in January.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Productive meeting.
We went through a lot.